Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the season finale of the Rapid Drivers Club Community Super League Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available on PC and next generation consoles, that is Assetto Corsa Competizione. And today, of course, we're being the season finale, it is round 6 of 6, as our drivers take to the circuit for the final time this season in order to settle the scores, settle the differences, and come the end of it when we bring the checkered flag down, we'll of course be crowning our championship team, and indeed our champions there. Will it be the reigning champions of Salt Community Racing, or will there be a new championship team crowned as of tonight? Well, our schedule for tonight, times in British summertime or Universal Coordinated Time, or UTC at +1, is as follows. It is the case that in just under 9 minutes time, we'll be going qualifying for 15 minutes, and it'll be the case there all of our drivers will be out on the circuit looking to get their best possible lap times in order to set themselves up well on the grid for the final race of the season. And we'll be transitioning straight into that race, what will be 7:30 this evening, and that'll be a 90-minute race as per the standard course, where we'll of course have that mandatory pit stop thrown into the mix. Strategy and also race pace will play just as critical as a part of one another, and come the end of it, we'll be seeing how the results lie and who will be crowned our champions. And well, it will be the case that after the race tonight, we'll be taking a brief pause before returning for our post-race interviews, while podium finishers, of course, are P1, P2 and P3 finishers, and those interviews will be approximately at 9:10 this evening. Now, this broadcast is being brought to you live on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. It is the case, firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh. Alternative, if you're more of a Twitch person, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. And who is TX141? Who is Paul Walsh? Well, it is I, your host and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And it is the case, I'll be bringing you all of your racing action over the course of tonight and wrapping up the season, and what a season it has been. And well, to reflect upon it, let's take a look at the calendar as it has played out. It was, of course, the case that whilst it's the 17th of September today, and we will be at Watkins Glen, all the way back at the start on the 9th of July, we kicked off at the Kyalami Circuit in South Africa, and a brilliant season opener where we saw Wildwings Racing and Salt Racing Community go toe-to-toe over the course of 90 minutes, and it was the case that in the end, Salt Racing Community came out on top in terms of the points. Then we made our way to Donington Park, where it was the case that Salt Racing Community once again able to pick up a brilliant score, but it was Wildwings Racing who fought back as hard as possible. But in between the pair of them, it was the case that DC Sim Racing and also SOP Motorsport both saw a rivalry start to intensify. It started in round number 1, but really started to hit its limit in round number 2. And we were in Donington Park in the United Kingdom back on the 23rd of July. It was then the case we made our way all the way out to Australia for round number 3 to conclude the first half of the season. That was on the 6th of August at Bathurst, and there we saw some very tricky conditions for our drivers, but it was the case that once again Salt Community Racing were able to come on through and score a superb set of results. And whilst we did see some rather individual performances and some standout individual performances from the likes of Wildwings Racing, of SOP Motorsport, DC Sim Racing, and also Rapid Drivers Club as well, it was the case there that Salt Racing Community really able to bring those points home and set themselves up well going into the second half of the season. Now, do keep in mind there was no extended mid-season break. It was another 2 weeks before we made our way to Paul Ricard in France for round number 4 on the 20th of August, and there we saw it was the case that in the circuit, which everybody either loves or hates, is a bit of a Marmite circuit, with all our drivers in the same car, it was all about the setup and driver preference for setting their car up at the circuit. And once more, Salt Community Racing really delivering at the circuit, but individual performances from other teams as well are standing out. And also we saw some superb battling from our teams in the midfield and lower down the ranks, including Formula Racing League and also RIP Racing Club, and let's not count out as well the Sim Racing Collective, where those teams all had a major opportunity, and Half Fast Gaming also got into the mix at certain points as well. And then in round number 5, the previous round, we went back to the United Kingdom for the Alton Park Circuit, and there it was a bit of an odd one. First, it was the case it was extremely rainy, very tricky conditions at Alton Park, but to be fair, the British summer is highly unpredictable, and we've seen quite an unpredictable summer in the United Kingdom this year, achieving some record high temperatures, but also some very excessive rain, particularly in the month of August going into September. But the more important thing as well, we did not see Salt Community Racing take to the circuit, and we explain exactly why shortly, why that has not made a huge impact on the championship standings. But in return, what we also saw there was the first locked out podium for a team, and it was Wildwings Racing who were able to secure P1, P2, P3 last time out. Not able to make it the perfect 4 out of 4 with a P4 as well, but they did come close, and that set them up very nicely for the season finale tonight. And then we are, of course, in the United States of America. We've gone across the Atlantic Atlantic Ocean to Watkins Glen International, and it is the 17th of September. Now, coming from our season to what is our team standings, let's tell you the story then of the team standings. It is the case that after 5 rounds of racing, Salt Community Racing stand atop of the list on 1,261 points, and it is the case there. We have to keep in mind that only the best 4 results from the 6 rounds will count towards a team's total score. So that means that you have to drop 2 scores come the end of this, and that's why we feel as though Salt Community Racing were not heavily impacted at Alton Park, given the fact they have had 4 stellar rounds, 3 in particular, rounds 1, 2 and 4, where they were able to pick up 300 plus points rounds, and it's only round number 3 where they dipped below 300 points, 269 at Bathurst, and it is the case they are expected to be crowned champions today. They've already got one hand on the title, and given they are reigning champions from season 1, it will be a successful title defence. Now, how could that potentially be upset is the big question. Well, the permutations would essentially have to be that Salt Community Racing would need to have multiple non-finishes, multiple DNFs, if you will, and we'd have to see a team out of the 3 main rivals against them, SOP Motorsport, DC Sim Racing and Watkins Racing, they would need to score a huge result today. You'd effectively need to see any of those teams lock out the podium, and then their 4th driver would need to finish within the top 5 to have a chance of essentially turning the result around. And you can see there in particular, SOP Motorsport, their drop score of 154 means that the next score they would drop right now out of those in that P2 slot would be the score of 267 from round number 3, and with that score they need to better it, and they would need to better it by a margin of 121 points, if not more, to be able to do so. So effectively they would be looking at a score there right out towards almost 400 in order to be able to get it done, and that is a score we have not seen anybody come close to yet, although we could say that Watkins Racing came relatively close, 21 points off when they scored 379 points last time around. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Let's take you through the standings as well in terms of 2nd through to 5th. SOP Motorsport in P2 there, and the main challengers to take home that P2 position, given the fact they're on 1,140 points, and their story has been a story of consistency, minus Donington Park, but they've dropped that round, and you can see there, they've scored 1 300 plus point round in round number 1, but rounds 3, 4 and 5, they have picked up above 250 points in each of those 3 rounds, and really continue to deliver, and the story of SOP Motorsport has really been, they've been targeting being the main contenders to Salt Community Racing, and when they haven't been able to achieve that, they've been looking to be the runner-up in all cases. But they have had a very fierce rivalry with DC Sim Racing, our 3rd place drivers, as we go into this round, where DC Sim Racing for a long time back and forth with SOP Motorsport for that P2, and it is a case of 1,131 points, only 9 points behind. It could swing either way. The one thing they have in their favour is that their drop score out of the 4 that have been accrued on them, that 251 points in round number 3, is a margin they can improve upon quite considerably compared to the 267 from SOP Motorsport. So DC Sim Racing technically do have an advantage here if they want to improve and steal away that runner-up spot. But then we come to our P4 team, Wild Things Racing, and this is where it gets very interesting, because Wild Things Racing have their round 1 score at the moment, counting that 197 points, and if they can mimic what they did at Alton Park and go one step further and get all 4 drivers inside that top 5, you could imagine they could get a major overhaul in terms of points, and if they can make it P1, P2, P3 and P5, let's say, they could even potentially take the championship crown away from Salt Community Racing, particularly if Salt Community Racing do have those DNFs as we mentioned earlier. It would be very adverse, but the more important thing here is that Wild Things Racing could, if they score extremely well today, jump into P2 right at the finish and steal away that 2nd place spot from SOP Motorsport and DC Sim Racing. That's why it's all to play for, and Wild Things Racing really are the ones with the ace up their sleeve potentially. Rapid Drivers Club, they're in P5 on 969 points, and the story of Rapid Drivers Club has been an interesting one. We have not seen them necessarily have the performances they've wanted over the course of this season. Round number 1 was a struggle for the RDC team. It didn't work out for any of their drivers, and they were resilient, but at the same time, they knew they left a lot on the table. In round number 2, they started to improve their form, and Bathurst was where we saw a strong performance. But then in round number 4, it didn't quite work out, Paul Ricard. They gambled on strategies, and those strategies did not play out to their favour, and it is the case in round number 5. They really tried to deliver strong, and on 273 points, it is the case that Rapid Drivers Club picks up some major points, and they are potentially of an arm's reach of a top 3 finish, but they would need to score big today and have their rivals lose out. Outside of the top 5, it is the case that Quantum Racing Team there in P6, now ahead of the Sim Racing Collective after a brilliant performance at Alton Park on 659 points, and they have really been trying to lead this battle to be the best of the rest in P6 versus their peers, with the Sim Racing Collective not in attendance last time out, but they did have that stellar performance in round number 4 and in rounds 1 as well, but they've got quite a margin they can improve upon with rounds 2 and 3. Formula Racing League, they're staying within touch on 389 points, only the best part there of what is 11 points clear of RIP Racing Club, and it's more of a rivalry to finish in P8 between the two teams there, rather than a charge after P7, P6. But Formula Racing League have been doing well and have really seen their results oscillate, but particularly rounds 1 and round 3 were where they excelled. RIP Racing Club, not in attendance last time out, they've got 2 zeros as their drop scores effectively now, which they can improve upon quite massively, so we could see them jump up into P8 definitely, if not P7 or P6 by the end of tonight, and then wrapping up the top 10, their half-fast gaming. In this case, only 47 points they're named last time out, with a limited number of drivers in attendance, and again, they have plenty of opportunity to improve here and potentially jump ahead of some of their peers in the hunt for P6. Box Motorsports there, unfortunately not in attendance in this series by looks of things. They've not been in attendance at any of the rounds so far, and they are currently sitting last but not least in P11 with 0 points. As we get ready to go into qualifying, let's head from our standings then to our circuit. And our circuit map here is of Watkins Glen International, which will play host to our drivers today. Located near the town of Watkins Glen in the state of New York in the United States of America, this circuit, consisting of 11 corners, is a classical American circuit. It was a case that opened in 1956. This circuit has played host to major global series, including Formula 1 in the past, and it continues to play host to major American series, including the NASCAR Cup and also the GT World Challenge America on a yearly basis. And it is loved for its highly cambered corners, but on top of that as well, its ability to generate very close racing, given the fact there's a lot of straightaways, there's some heavy braking zones, and also the sweeping nature of this circuit means that it's all about carrying speed from corner to corner. And from our circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, it doesn't quite tell the full story of that cambered nature of the corners, or indeed the need to carry that speed, and we'll ride on board in qualifying to give you an exact idea of how it all plays on out. But as for our rules today, in general, all participants shall be driving the BMW M4 GT3 as they have done all season. It is a single make series, this one, and it is a single driver series as well, where each driver's points score contributes to their respective community. In qualifying, drivers are permitted to use return to garage whilst out on the circuit, so long as they do so in a safe manner. And in the race, as always, there is one mandatory pit stop, which will require fuel to be added, and changing tyres is optional. There is a 30-minute pit window in which this pit stop must occur, however. It is the case that drivers must pit between 30 minutes into the race and 60 minutes into the race for the pit stop to be counted as valid. That's enough rules and regulations. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing action. We are too. And as qualifying gets underway here in the late evening, in fact, it is 8:15 in the evening right now, Watkins Glen. Our drivers are making their way on around. And as they do, it is the case. Everybody's set up. Now, I can tell you that we will not be seeing from Rapid Drivers Club in particular today. We'll not be seeing Alex Nunes joining the team out there on circuit. It is the case he's not available. But instead, they will have 4 drivers out there, including Tom Davidson, one of the big names of the team to watch out for. The Rapid Drivers Cup driver from the United Kingdom, the 842 car. Definitely been putting in some stellar performances over the last couple of rounds and digging deep to perform time and time again. But as he makes his way on through, it is the case that we do look from him to the 997 car in particular, Tim Troquet from DC Sim Racing here, the Dutchman who has continuously confounded expectations and tried to wrangle results out when things have not been going well. And as he charges through the final 2 corners here to go into the first flying lap of this qualifying session, we'll be riding on board with him as he takes us around for a lap of Watkins Glen. So as he makes his way out to the final corner, getting as close to that exit wall as possible, he now charges down towards turn number 1. Remove that timing tower there so you can see it clearly, and as he heads into the braking zone here, braking at around what is the 200-yard mark, making his way through the right-hander and rolling on out there, coming into 3rd gear, and now charging up the hill through 4th into 5th gear shortly through turns 2, 3 and 4 here. The right, left combination completely flat out, and it is the case if you battle side by side through it, you normally do have to lift. It is the case there's one line through here, and Troquet's showing you exactly what that line looks like right now. Making his way along the straightaway here and up towards the bus stop chicane that's not qualified as a corner, braking around the 400-yard board there and rolling the car into the corner, and as he does, jumping over those high curves in 3rd, back up to 4th gear, and now into the right-hander, a turn at number 5 as he makes his way down through the off-camber corner. You can see it cambers out there as he exits the corner, and as he rolls down towards turn number 6 now, another slightly off-camber corner, it's case downhill and sloping away from him the circuit, and as he makes his way through the corner, he's got to balance the throttle and get back on it as soon as possible, and now makes his way up into turn number 7 into what is known as toe corner. making his way into right-hand here. One of the slowest corners on the circuit, down to second gear, taking a V-shaped apex there, not what we typically see. We see normally more of a flowing apex, but Troket's trying a different line, now making his way down the back straight, all the way up towards turn number 8 into hill corner here, looking to the 100-yard board on the left-hand side, run his way on in, and as he does, bring his way for the right-hander here, not going as deep on the exit as you'd like to, and getting the car set up nicely for turn number 9 as he returns to the classic loop of the circuit, and as he does, and the slowest car on the circuit, turn number 9, exited out, and as he makes his way now up towards turns 10 and 11, the left into right sequence, it is the case we can see here in fourth gear, balancing the throttle, getting back on the throttle now, to quickly stamp on the brakes here for turn number 11. Will he downshift to third? No, he stays in fourth, and as he exits on out the corner, what's it going to be here from Troket as he comes to the timeline? It's going to be the first lap of the session, and it is going to be a 44.467. It's a good lap, but I suspect we're going to be seeing some faster laps out there, potentially some 43s, there's no doubt about that, but it is the case that Troket's setting the marker. Now how will everybody else get on in trying to match him as he makes his way on around for the second time? Whereas the case we see Jonathan Reed there from SOP Motorsport, SOP Esports Racing as their esports division is known. Here's the case the Briton there in the 105 car going faster by 7 thousandths of a second on a 44.460 as he makes his way on up the hill, and as he charges on through here, it is the case our driver trying to do everything he can to deliver the laps on right now, but we see immediately Liam Page, his teammate, going faster there by 2.5 tenths, and Page, well, a nice lap there. And to be fair, when I had the chance to catch up briefly with Simon Baggers, the team manager for SOP Motorsport, it is the case he was beaming with pride with regards to his teammates and looking forward to seeing how they get on, because they are going today, SOP Motorsport, for that second place in the championship. They feel as though they deserve that runner-up spot, and I'd have to agree with them, to be honest. They really have been pushing so hard round after round, and to be fair, all the teams have been pushing hard as Liam Page pushes it a bit too hard there coming through the bus stop chicane. But when I was speaking to Simon, it is the case he's saying to me that the team are ready to bring home second in the championship after regaining second after penalties from the previous round, because some penalties were applied post-race. There was a bit of contact between some of the SOP Motorsport drivers and also the DC Sim Racing drivers, and indeed quite a few penalties were investigated post-round at Alton Park. But it is the case that for SOP Motorsport, they feel as though they've got an outside shot of the overall championship. The 120-point deficit or so to Salt Community Racing means that unless Salt Community Racing do not improve, have multiple non-finishes, and then SOP Motorsport are able to pick up the pieces with multiple podiums, it's not looking like it may potentially happen, but they're keeping their eyes on it. It could happen, of course, and it is the case. In terms of their drivers taken to the circuit tonight, they do have Liam Page, as we said earlier. They've also got John, they've also got Matt out there, but they've also got newcomer Danny Bysden, who will be joining them out on circuit. He's a new signing to the team, and we look forward to seeing how Danny gets on, and indeed, where is he out on circuit at the moment? We can't quite find him at the moment, and in fact, there he is. There's the newcomer from the United States of America. So he is racing at one of his home circuits today. We're not sure which state he heralds from, but it is the case if he heralds from New York, then he'll really have a lot of pride. And speaking of pride there, when he goes at the top of the timing tower there on a 44.062 with 9 minutes left to go, whether he wanted to make an entrance, he's definitely made one there, has Bysden, as he makes his way through turns 2 through to 4 right now. But it is the case the team absolutely on the charge. They don't know what to expect at Watkins Glen, but hope they can get all 4 drivers in the top 10 and finish the championship like they started with drivers on the podium. And to be fair, we saw that, of course, at Kyalami, where they decided to gamble with 2 of their drivers, deciding not to change tyres, and it worked out a treat for them. They got 1 driver on the podium. Can they finish on a high and achieve their podiums today? We will have to wait and see. But as they make the way around, we do say hello to Leon Seeley there in the YouTube chat, and SOP Motorsport driver as well. We saw him in earlier rounds. I hope you're doing well, Leon. We also say hello to Little Matt there, saying I've everything across the Wild Things Racing here. And speaking of Wild Things Racing, well, it is the case. We do have Harry Phillips in the pit lane right now, the Wild Things Racing driver, of course, the driver who brought home the Wild Things Racing triple podium at Alton Park, as he makes his way on out to the pit lane, coming off the jacks. New set of tyres on. Here he goes once again. He's currently P4, 2 tenths off of Bysden, but as he makes his way on out the pit lane here, looking to deliver as much as possible. And Forzy in the Twitch chat there, enjoying the broadcast and the commentary. And thank you very much, Forzy, and I hope you're doing well. And indeed, to all you guys and girls tuning in, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi in the chat if you can, and if you can't, I hope you're having a great weekend so far. As meanwhile, Tim Troket fires back there for 43.965 to retake provisional pole. There's still plenty of time out in the circuit. Track condition is still fast. It's not optimum at the moment. There's not enough rubber down for it to be considered optimum, as Matt Camelio now goes provisional pole. The circuit is graining in, and here is the response from Salt Community Racing. It is the case the flying fin of Team Karpinen here, making his way through turn number 1 now. He's gone pole on a 43.465, and that's half a second faster than anybody else so far. Well, it is the case. I think the team who has absolutely nailed that lap, and he is flying right now as he goes underneath our camera there and up towards the bus stop chicane. He charges, but well, it was the case, of course, in round number 4. He was absolutely on a run at Circuit Paul Ricard, and as he makes his way through the bus stop chicane here, you'd like to think the 817 driver will be wanting to end his season campaign on a high, much like his teammate will of what is Sir Foch, or Samuel Foch as he's known, as he makes his way down into turn number 6. And as he rolls his way down right now, it is the case the 888 driver here, currently P9, but we have seen throughout the season from Foch, it is the case he's normally the stronger race driver, focuses very heavily on strategy, and also he's normally coming to these rounds using qualifying to really sight himself up, and he will deliver his best lap right at the end. Sometimes the team have not had time to actually practice for the round until they get onto the circuit, and they've been honest about that, but it is of course a bit of an unknown in terms of they're not able to practice before the round, given the fact they use qualifying in the pre-practice session as their practice. Then we have to see how their pace envelops and comes on out in the race itself, which is brilliant to see. And Foch definitely right now looking good in that P9, and well, as he makes his way around, not improving on this lap so far, but I think he'll be targeting a top 10 qualifying position to set himself up well going into the race. He goes a bit wide there coming out of the penultimate corner, and he'll be going to the pits. But as we look from him to Darryl Young, meanwhile the Wild Things Racing driver here in the 9 car, it is the case currently in P14, and we can see still times coming on in from drivers, and anybody improving by significant margins is the big question. Well, it is the case that we do have Chris Davidson, Quantum Racing Team here, the South African driver in the 790 machine, making his way through turn number 7. Now, I do believe that's turn number 7. Yes, it is, coming through Toe Corner. And why is it known as Toe Corner? You may be asking why we've got Hill Corner coming on up. Well, it is the case there are 2 variants to this circuit. We have the classic circuit, and then we have the boot layout, which we are driving at today. The boot layout being the full version of the Watkins Glen International Circuit, where the added corners make up what looks like a boot, as you may have noticed in the circuit map earlier. So that's why it's referred to as boot, and that's why we have Toe and Hill Corner in particular. But as Davis makes his way out of the boot and back onto the classical loop for the final 2 corners here, he is currently up a whole second on his previous best, and that would jump him all the way up to around P16, P15, around Fisher and Pixley as he makes his way to the timeline. What's it going to be for Chris Davies? Then he comes across the line and he goes from P23 to P14 there, and he is only 9 tenths off of the pole lap set by Team Karapinen at this point. 5 minutes to go still in this qualifying session. Still plenty of time on the board for drives. That's at least 2, if not 3 laps. And speaking of drivers who are trying to put in laps here, we see the German driver from Salt Community Racing of Icket Hudvoind as he makes his way through turn number 7, looking to try and now deliver a better lap. But he's down this one by 7 tenths. I think he's got it a bit wrong somewhere around the lap, and therefore he's getting himself set up. But speaking of a driver who's really pushing as he's moved up to P5, here is Harry Phillips. And right now, as Phillips makes his way on through here, he's trying to find a bit more lap time. But we can see more and more drivers are moving up the order, but nobody able to get anywhere near close to Karapinen's lap at the moment. The gap is 4.5 tenths from first to second. Tim Troquet in P2 right now, and well, could Salt Community Racing get it done and dusted with regards to that pole lap nice and early? I think the answer is yes. Track condition has been upgraded to optimum as of the last 5 minutes. We've got a lot of rubber having been laid down now, and could that potentially sway the difference in the end? Well, I can tell you at the moment nobody is going that much faster in terms of setting purple sectors. There's some of them on personal improvements, including Kieran Sharp here from the Sim Racing Collective, the Briton making his way down and around, but it is the case nobody right now going purple anywhere. It's only greens and individual personal sector greens, no purple overall sectors, and Sharp trying to do his utmost to move up into the top 20 because of the Sim Racing Collective here. It really is much like for its Formula Racing League and also for the Quantum Racing Team. It is about trying to deliver here to end up the best of the rest in that battle for P6 and potentially even sneak into the top 5, although I think that's going to be a big ask for all the teams. I think it's more about them all fighting over that P6 position because we have seen some brilliant rivalries further down the field. It's not just been about the top 10 in the field, it's also been about further down. A little bit of an interesting thing here is what we don't really talk about drivers' championship points because of the fact this is a team's championship, but if this series was being done on drivers' championship points after 5 rounds, it is the case that it will be Wild Things Racing's Harry Phillips leading the standings rather than Salt Community Racing, and that goes to show you how when you've got multiple drivers from teams having to contribute points together, it's down to the group effort. And that's not to say Wild Things Racing haven't been delivering as a team, but that is where Salt Community Racing have been so strong, is their ability to deliver a whole set of results time and time again. The same with SOP Motorsport, and then Wild Things Racing and DC Sim Racing have been bit more of a balance, or trying to find that balance of getting that team result group together, and Rapid Drivers Club as well, trying to get into that place where they're able to get those points on the board as a team rather than as individuals. But that's what makes this series such a challenging one, because it all comes down to how you all do, not just one or two of your drives, because you can have 4 drives out to the circuit, and DC Sim Racing here have also got Nick Timmermans taken to the circuit today. And I imagine for the season finale, given these teams have up to 10 drivers being entered in some cases, they'll be bringing out the best of the group for the purposes of the Watkins Glens circuit. And as we've seen so far, this circuit does not take prisoners, given the fact it requires you to push so much and have so much confidence in the car. And well, speaking of confidence here, he's going even faster as he makes his way out to toe corner at turn 7. It is the case that Harry Phillips has gone P2 and he's gone to the pit, so Phillips' qualifying session is over. As we're to understand, he hasn't had enough in the car to be able to steal away that pole position. He can close by 400s, but Karpinen right now is going ever faster. He's currently 2 tenths up on his previous best after sector 2, and as he makes his way through the final couple of corners, a bit of the grass being taken there, but as he heads into what is the left-hander here of turn number 10, he's purple right now. This could be even better. Could it be a 43.3 on the cards, which would be a huge lap right at the deadlock here as he makes about the final corner. He's going even faster out the final corner. He crosses the line, and what's it going to be? It's a 42.9. Goodness me, and that is a huge benchmark for anybody to try and beat, and I think that is going to make qualifying done and dusted, because there's no way surely anybody's going faster than that. It's the only 42 in this qualifying session, and Karpinen is absolutely on point today. We missed seeing him and the rest of the team from Salt Community Racing last time at Alton Park, but they are back, and they are back to finish this championship as they came into it as championship title defenders. As we see Christoph Samin here making his way into the penultimate 2 quarters as he rolls his way on through here. Samin normally qualifying inside the top 10, not quite on the momentum today, and I wonder if the circuit is catching him out, much like a number of his peers in fact. Troket down in P6 right now, and as Samin makes his way to the timeline, we're going to ride on board with Samin as he takes us around for his final flying lap of this session to see where it may not be working out. As he makes his way into turn 1 here, taking plenty of apex curve, and indeed these drivers are encouraged to take that apex curve. The BMW very steady over the curves, and as he makes his way through turns 2 through to 4, completely flat out here, making his way up the hill. And of course, our drivers will be running different setups. Some may be running a bit more downforce than others, but I can imagine it's going to be a fine balance. So you run a lot rear wing here, expect to be passed on the straights, particularly run up towards the bus stop chicane, as he makes his way all the way on up towards the bus stop, looking on his left there, trying to go as late as possible, braking at that 300-yard warning. You can see him to really stop the car as he rolls his way on through. It's a nice bus stop chicane, and heading down now into turn number 5, and we can hear that briefly a little bit of sliding in the car under braking. Now I think that's where he's losing the time. The car's not quite set up to be stable under that intense braking at short notice, and as he makes his way through a left-hander, it's the case that Danny Weissman's gone P3 as he's returned to the pits. Nobody right now looking purple to close up onto Team Karpinen, as meanwhile we ride with Samin here through toe corner, goes a little bit deeper to be fair, takes that V-shaped apex that we talked about earlier, and as he makes his way out of the corner right now, 3 tenths up in his previous best. This could right now move him all the way up into the top 10 if he finishes this lap as he's proceeded onto it. He's looking good right now. He's going to leave it late to get into that top 10. As he heads out of turn number 8 up towards 9 now. This is the corner that catches so many out, because there's a little bump in the road just as you make your way to the apex curve. As he comes now, takes a bit of grass there as he drops to P15. More drivers improving as he comes through the final 2 corners here. Can he get himself up into that top 10 as he heads into the right hand here at turn at number 11? Hooks up nicely. A bit conservative on the approach there, but he's going to blast it on corner exit, and coming on out where he's a bit safe on exit. He didn't go as close to the wall. He's 3 tenths up and he crossed the line. He jumps to P8 right at the finish there. Good lap there from Samin. As meanwhile, Liam Page trying to improve. Oh, it's a whack to the wall from Liam Page, and that lap is going to be aborted right at the end. That is unfortunate for Page. Meanwhile, got a couple more drives out on circuit, including Harry Phillips here, who, well, he's finished his qualifying session, so it's the case this lap is not going to count. That's qualifying complete, and it is Teemu Karpinen who has taken pole position in the end by half a second over Harry Phillips and the rest of the field. But look at that from P2 to P10. 4 tenths separating 9 drivers. It is going to be close in the field. But if Karpinen starts this race as he's finished off in qualifying, I think he's going to be long gone into the distance, because that is absolutely phenomenal. But we will have to wait and see as we get ready to go racing. But what a qualifying session indeed. And now any other surprises? Well, it's the case that Danny Weissman on his debut, P3 there for SOP Motorsport, and the team are going to be absolutely chuffed with that one. I'm sure he will as well down in the paddock. And Geert Fischer there is, sorry, Geert Fischer, he's P4, and that's a good performance in the Salt Community Racing driver as well. Any unexpected or say disappointing surprises with drivers? Well, it is the case that Joey Fissians and Timmermans P14, P15 respectively for Wes DC Sim Racing, it's not quite worked out for them, and I think they may be wondering right now what can they do in order to improve when they go into the race. But speaking of the race, the grid is now being set, and let's take you through the grid for the final time this season. So it is the case as we make our way down from pole sitter all the way to the back of the field. We start off with our pole sitter of the final round, and that is this man. Teemu Karppinen starts on pole for round number 6 of the Rapid Drivers Club Community Super League Season 2. A stellar lap from the Finn from Salt Community Racing, and can he now bring it home as he starts it off on pole? Harry Phillips will start P2 alongside the Finn, the Briton here from Watkins Racing. He lines up there in the number 26 car, and then on row number 2, it's started by Danny Burnston from SOP Motorsport, the American there on his debut in the series, achieving a brilliant qualifying position, and could he potentially take the fight to Harry Phillips into turn number 1. He'll be joined on row number 2, however, by Geert Fischer, and Fischer will be starting in that P4 position 9 that he can work with his teammate up front in order to try and bring home a 1-2 for Salt Community Racing, the Dutchman there in the 878 car, and then behind it will be Liam Page, who starts P5, starts off our third row for SOP Motorsport, the Briton there in the 106 car. Well, he'll be itching to try and get a good result here for SOP Motorsport, given they've got 2 drivers qualifying inside the top 5. Tim Troket from DC Sim Racing, their highest qualified driver, starts on the third row in P6. The Dutchman there ahead of Samir Foch or Sir Foch, and it'll be the case the Salt Community Racing driver achieving it right at the end to get inside the top 10. He'll start P7, joined on the fourth row by Christophe Samin, the DC Sim Racing driver. They're jumping right up there on his final qualifying lap, the Belgian in the 996 car. On row number 5, we have Tom Davidson, the highest qualifying Rapid Drivers Club driver, and he'll be starting P9. The United Kingdom driver, joined by fellow Briton Darryl Young from Wild Things Racing, starting P10. Keep your eyes out for Darryl Young. He's a fast charger in the races, not necessarily in qualifying, but there's one thing we can be guaranteed with Darryl Young: there's going to be fireworks at some point. Then, starting off our 6th row is Matt Camelio from SOP Motorsport. The Briton there starting just outside the top 10, but still within eyesight of his teammates further up the road. And joining him on the 6th row is Jonathan Reed from SOP Motorsport. The 2 teammates there, and they've got a great opportunity to work together on the opening laps to try and put distance from the pack behind them and try to get inside the top 10. Speaking of the pack behind them, on row number 7, we have Vulcan Pakiridan from Rapid Drivers Cup, the American driver here, and he starts P13, joined by Joey Fissians from DC Sim Racing. Not working out for him in the end in qualifying, and the Dutchman's got it all to do from where's the 7th row of the grid. Behind him on the 8th row, and Nick Timmermans, his teammate, the lowest qualifying DC Sim Racing driver, unless I'm mistaken, and he'll be joined by Icket Hedwind from Salt Community Racing here, the German, not qualifying well, but again, one of those drivers to watch out for, because if he doesn't qualify well, it doesn't mean we won't see him up in the top 5 come the end of the race. He's very smart when it comes to race strategy and race pace. Then, starting off our 9th row, we have the Sim Racing Collective's Kieran Sharp from the United Kingdom in the 23 car. A good qualifying session from Kieran Sharp, and once again trying to get himself as far up as possible, and it's worked his way into the top 20 today. Joined on the 9th row by Chris Davies from Quantum Racing Team, and of course Quantum Racing Team rivals with the Sim Racing Collective for that P6 position in the championship. Expect fireworks between these two from the start. The South African there will do his best to get into P17 immediately when we go green. Richard Pixley starts off our 10th row from Wild Things Racing, another driver, not strong in qualifying, but we've normally seen him come through the field in the race, and he is joined on the 10th row by Jack Southfield from the Sim Racing Collective there, and we can see the 777 driver, lucky 7s on the car. Will it be his lucky day today? We'll have to wait and see. Behind them, starting outside the top 20 on row number 11, Randy Retnandito from Rapid Drivers Club, the Polishman there, qualifying P21, joined by Andrew Pike from what is the Sim Racing Collective, starting P22 there, and it is the case of Britain, qualifying behind his co-driver in the Rapid Drivers Club, where's the 2.4 World Tour Series, but it's the case in separate cars today. Pike will be looking to try and use strategic nuance to get into the top 20. Ricardo McKing starts P23 for Quantum Racing Team, the number 11 driver there, the Dutchman, behind the Sim Racing Collective drivers, and I think it will be his objective to try and beat the Sim Racing Collective from the start. Christopher King starts P24 on that 12th row, alongside the Quantum Racing Team driver, the Swede for Rapid Drivers Club, not having the qualifying session he wanted, but at the same time it is the case that Kling may be able to deliver in the race, there's no doubt about that. Evan Latafa starts P25 for Wild Things Racing here, the Greek driver in the 74 car. He starts off our 13th row and is joined by Tom Griffiths from Quantum Racing Team, who starts P26 in the 114 machine. The Briton there is ahead of row at number 14, which is made up of Drew Matthews, the American driver from Half Fast Gaming, and he'll be starting in P27, the 134 car, with Luke Garr starting P28 there from Half Fast Gaming on that row with him, and it is the case the Canadian there with his teammate, and behind them are their teammates of Steve Enderez, the Canadian there starting P29 on row 15, and then last but not least, representing the fourth and final drive for Half Fast Gaming tonight, it is Luis Okitsu, the American there starting P30, and well, Half Fast Gaming all starting from the final two rows, but to be fair, that may not be where they finish. They've just got to keep their heads down and deliver, and speaking of keeping their heads down, as we look to the helicam, it is the case, it's now heads down, lights on, because we're about to get the manual double file formation lap underway. Now we Timu Karpinen, who takes our field around for one formation lap, one warm-up lap, and when they come around next time around, we'll be going to the green for the final 90 minutes of racing this season, and well, all our questions will be answered. Can Salt Community Racing hold on to the championship come the finish? Is it the case that Wild Things Racing will make a last-minute spring into P2 from P4 in the championship? Can SOP Motorsport hold on to P2 and potentially surprise us all with a championship win? And also on top of that, can DC Sim Racing bring it together in the season finale when it matters most and stay in P3 in the championship, if not still P2 from SOP Motorsport? Those are the big questions, but we've also got the smaller questions out there, including with regards to the likes of the Sim Racing Collective. Can they leapfrog their way into P6 versus Quantum Racing Team at the finish, given the rivalry between the two of them, or will they not be able to? And given the fact we do not have Formula Racing League in attendance today, can Half Fast Gaming find their way to jump ahead of Formula Racing League right at the end and get out the P10 spot and into P9? And with RIP Racing Club not in attendance either, it is the case they could even jump up into P8. Plenty of questions, and we've only got 90 minutes to answer them all, and well, it will be very shortly the case that we'll start answering them. But as our drivers make the way on down and around right now, heading down this back straight all the way out to the bus stop chicane, not really a back straight as such, the back straight's from turn 7 to turn 8 theoretically. It is the case here, everybody itching to go. Some tyre warming going on here as we ride on board with Jonathan Reed, and well, if you're in the mind of Jonathan Reed right now, I think one of the big things on his mind is he's got to try and work with his teammate Camilio to get into the top 10 as early as possible. But you can imagine the Vulcan Pakiridan behind the Rapid Drivers Club driver is not going to give him an easy task. We know that Pakiridan, when he has a good start, it's a flying start compared to his peers, and he'll be looking to get the best possible launch as they make the way in towards turn number 1. It's a short run to turn number 1 as well, and that means that we could see some sparks and fireworks in terms of contacts. Of course, we don't hope for them, but it's always the way on a tapered apex, and then the runs through turns 2 through to 4, everybody will be looking to navigate their way safely through there. But of course, too wide through turns 2 through to 4, it doesn't always work out in practice, as meanwhile we look to Retnandito further back here starting P21. And to be fair, if it goes wrong at the start for drivers further up the field, it's the drivers towards the back of the field that can capitalise the most, such as Retnandito. As they're about to get underway, they've made the way halfway around the lap, they will get the call to start making the formation when they emerge from turn number 9. Our leaders emerge from turn number 9, so we've still got some time, but a lot of bobbing and weaving from side to side, for it is right now what is almost 10 past 8 in the evening, and as our drivers make the way on through the race, and it's only going to get colder. Track condition is optimum, but the thing is it's 16 degrees centigrade ambient and track right now, and we're expecting that to dip as time goes on, and as it continues to dip, that means those tyre pressures will start to drop, and it will be about trying to maintain tyre pressure, maintain tyre temperature as well, and whoever's able to achieve that, they've set the car up for the temperature dip, it may just work out. We're not expecting any rain today. It's meant to be sunny all day, as it is expected to be in New York, the state. And we'll have to wait and see whether there is any rain on the cards, whether just a bit of cloud changes things up. We have got heavy winds here, though, and those could play a factor into some of those heavy braking zones. But all that and more now as Timu Karpinen brings our drivers out to turn number 9, up towards turn number 10, and gets ready to make the final formation. As we see the call is made, Harry Phillips pulls alongside, and now we wait for Karpinen to take us to the green. it's lights out and away we go for round number 6. The season finale as Pakiridan tries to get a good start, but Harry Phillips immediately around the outside into turn number 1. Now as they make their way into the braking zone here, Pakiridan's not going to let it go, and further back Danny Burnston defending versus Wes Fisher in the run out of turn 1. Further back Davidson's ahead of Darryl Young, but as they make their way up the hill, now it's all going to get very close here as they make their way into turn number 3. That's where they concertina in, and as they roll the way through, there's a car into the wall there. Multiple cars in contact. I think that's Fisher involved in the contact, and as everybody comes on up here, a lot of brake lights are going to go on, but can everybody react in time? There's a DC sim racing machine turned into the wall. It's all gone so horribly wrong, and it's a traffic jam on the exit of turn number 4. Goodness me, and that is at least 12, if not 15 drivers all caught up, and Will Foster's made his way on through. Evan Natafas has now made it on through, but this has shaken up the field massively. My goodness, what on earth has happened there? That is the big question. We're trying to find out, and let's take a look back. Well, it was at the race start, and I think it was Fisher who was caught in that contact as they got underway. So we're taking an immediate replay here of exactly what happened. Now we're watching with the helicam focused on Fisher as he made his way into turn number 1. And as he did here, you can see the side-by-side battle with Burnston coming out of the corner. Now, was it them, or was it a driver a little bit further back as they came through 2 and then up into 3? Well, I think this is where the contact's about to begin. Yep, there was contact between the 2 of them. They came together, and that's what kicked it all off in the end. And you can see some drivers were able to make their way on through, but then some lost out. Christoph Salmon in particular was the DC sim racing machine we called out as being knocked about there. We also got Richard Pixley getting caught up. The half-fast gaming drivers were able to stop the cars, but as we return to our live pictures right now, it is the case. The field has been separated considerably, and we've got a lot of drivers with damaged cars here as we get to the end of lap number 1. But as they come across the timeline this time around, it is Team Pakiridan who continues to lead after retaking the lead off of Harry Phillips in the run to 1 versus Phillips behind in P2. Then we've got Tim Trockett in P3, Liam Page P4, followed by Jonathan Reed P5. Then it's Matt Camelio P6. SOP Motorsport here have had a brilliant start for 2 of their drivers at the cost of 1 of them, and then it's Vulcan Pakiridan in P7, followed by Joe Fissians at P8, and then we've got Ickett Headwind in P9, gaining multiple places at the start. But look at this, Davidson right now under pressure from what is there Richard Pixley as they make their way side by side through turn number 3. Well, surely it's not going to happen a second time. Oh my goodness, and that's Davidson into the wall. Davidson's hit the wall turn 3, taking a bit too much apex curve there, coming through the left-hander, and it's all gone wrong for Davidson, but he's survived the whack to the wall, and he's not been caught in a tangle up with other drivers here, but Davidson drops on down. Meanwhile, Pixie now up into P10, Timmerman's in P11, and then Retnandito right now up to P12 from P21 at the start. And remember I said, when it all goes wrong for certain drivers up front, it's the drivers at the back that can suddenly gain, and Retnandito is one of the big gainers at the start of this race. He's gained 9 places since we've gone green, and he's going after Timmermans now as they make their way up towards turn number 7. But then behind these guys we've got Kieran Sharp, followed by Sir Foch here in P14, and Foch was able to avoid most of the damage. He was caught up in it, but to be fair, by avoiding most of it, he can carry on racing. He hasn't had to come into the pits. Davidson right now is making his way on around in the wounded car. Then we've got Christopher Kling in P16. Chasing after his teammate Davidson, Tom Gris in P17 as they make the way on past the stationary camera there, and as they make the way on through, we've also got Evan Natafas, but it is the case the field has been severely shaken up, and as we look back up towards our leader right now, where Harry Phillips has found his way back past his team of Pakiridan, we didn't quite catch it on camera, but now it's Phillips who leads this race after 2 laps here. It's a back and forth as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and indeed Sir Bottle Job saying then the YouTube chat, the Glen claims yet another starting pack, and it is the case that another starting pack has been claimed, and will Rover Alex Rowe from Quantum Racing Team saying that is a totally avoidable incident. Well, it has gone very, very wrong, and Marky Mark's asking, will there be a red flag in the Twitch chat? I don't think there's going to be a red flag. I haven't heard anything being whispered to me, and I'm checking in with the stewards, and well, there's nothing with regards to a red flag here. We are going racing all the way to the finish now. We've got multiple drivers into the pits. Davidson's into the pits once now, and now it's also Natafas in. It has gone so very, very wrong for multiple drivers, but I don't think we're going to be getting a restart here, but the top 3 have broken away. Meanwhile, Vulcan Pakiridan here, well, he's having a happy start. Here's the case, the American, he's jumped into the top 10, and he's chasing after Jonathan Reed here as they make the way through shoot corner and now down in towards turn number 6. But as they roll the way on through here, Matt Camillo just behind him, his teammate. We've got Samuel Foch in. Well, I think Foch has had an incident on circuit, where it's the case that Foch is being flagged as having an off circuit, I think at the bus stop chicane, but he's pushing on right now, and Kieran Sharp all the way up to P10. Sharp has gained multiple places. In fact, he's found his way past both Foch and Retnandito. Something's happened between them, surely, This is the case that we have seen a big shake-up in the order here, and, well, all the drama continues at Watkins Glen, and we're only 5 minutes into the 90-minute race. But as our drivers continue their way on around here, it is the case that we do look from P10 to P6, and this is Pakiridan looking for the move versus Jonathan Reed here. Reed under huge pressure as we ride on board with the American, as he makes his way through the left-hander then, and now up towards turn number 10. Here's the case number 18 driver Pakiridan here, seeing an absolutely brilliant start. He's the highest placed Rapid Drivers Club driver right now, and looking to go on the offensive as he makes his way into turn number 11, rolling his way through the right hand here. But you can see how Reed getting the better run out of those corners initially. I think Pakiridan has invested in a lot of straight line speed, because you can see in the draft he's actually gaining quite significantly as they come into turn number 1, into the right angle 90. It is the case, and no change, although Reed goes a little bit deep here. Pakiridan's going to have the potential run in the run to the bus stop chicane. Now, will he go early? Will he go late? I suspect he's going to lift it off a little bit initially, and now he's going to completely go full throttle here and hope he can hang it around the outside. Well, you can see there Reed putting the car nice on that inside. He brings it into the middle of the road briefly, and Pakiridan forced to go to the outside line. Now, will he force the move, or will he wait here? He's going to see what he can do. We can see that Reed there going a little bit later on the brakes on the inside. Pakiridan trying to outfox his rival by getting him to go overly deep, but Jonathan Reed hooking it up nicely. They stay as they were as they make the way on down on the round, but as they head down through turn number 5, once again, it is the case a bit further down the order. We do have Icket Hoodwood, who has gained multiple places since the start of this race, and behind Joey Vissian's there under pressure from Kieran Sharp. Kieran Sharp trying to go round the outside into turn number 6. It's not a place you normally go for a move around the outside into 6, but he's trying it there, and Kieran Sharp putting a lot of pressure on as we ride on board here with Joey Vissian. You see Sharp taking a little peek up the inside there into toe corner, not able to find it. Vissian's closing the door just about as they now make the way out to 7 and up towards 8, but as they charge on through at this point, it is the case that Kieran Sharp definitely showing, whilst he may have qualified a long way down, he's got the pace in that car to go hunting after a top 10 finish here today. And with everything that's happened, Kieran Sharp right now really putting that pressure on here. He's giving it everything, because he knows the Sim Racing Collective can take that P6 of a Quantum Racing team right at the end. But as they make the way on out the corner here, we're here in the Vulcan Pakiridan has just found his way past Jonathan Reed, and Camelio has found his way past Headpoint, although I think that might be a little bit of a glitch to our timing screen, given the fact we do have a little bit of a timing error around turns 10 11. But oh goodness me, there's a whack to the rear of Joey Vissian's car there from Kieran Sharp. Well, Sharp's coming a little bit too hot, and Vissian's is turned. Well, in return, that's Retnandito and Sir Fosh up into further positions there, as now Retnandito's looking for the move on Sharp. He's up the inside, and Sharp closes the door there, but it is the case that Kieran Sharp is taking no prisoners here at the Glen. I think Joey Vissian's right now would not be best pleased about that as they make the way on up the hill, but definitely a knock there, and I think that one will be going to the post-race stewarding panel. There's no live stewarding in this series, of course. In this case, it's all post-race stewarding, but that one will definitely get reported, I think, by Vissian's after the races. Meanwhile, they make the way down the straightaway here, and now Fosh is going to take a look up the inside versus Retnandito. Retnandito just able to outbrake Fosh slightly there into the bus stop chicane, and Fosh playing the safety game here as they make the way down to turn at number 5. Meanwhile, as they roll the way on down the hill, let's not forget the battle between our leaders. Well, here they come, as we just saw a bit of a blank canvas camera for a brief while, and this is your top 3 right now. Harry Phillips is leading. He's found his way back past Karapinen, but it is the case that Tim Troquette's just behind him as well, as they make the way up towards turn number 8, and as they make the way into the right-hander a bit further back, that's Liam Page, who's also trying to stay in the hunt with the top 3. But Phillips and Karapinen fighting, keeping Troquette within arm's reach, and I think here Liam Page as well will be excited at the fact he's going to be in this, what will be eventually a 4-way fight for the win early on in this race. But of course, remember, it could be the case that with all the fighting these guys do, they potentially put themselves at risk of being jumped on the strategy later on. The pit window, of course, opening in 21 minutes time. Got a while to go yet before that opens, but considerations may be made. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, outside the top 10, where all of our focus has been since the big incident on lap number 1. We've got Andrew Pike here, who now back on his way racing, chasing after Luke Garr from Half Fast Gaming, and as they make the way down towards turn number 8, you can see there it is the case that Garr trying to defend the inside here. Pike tries to go for the cut back, but Garr parks it. And well, there's a tap, and there's also Carl Turner, and that's Steve Endress getting it very wrong there, as he's pointing in the wrong direction. What on earth happens to the Half Fast Gaming driver? Well, we take a look back here as he's making his way on out of turn at number 7. And I think this may have been of his own volition here, as in fact we ride on board. We get the on-board perspective of what happened to him. And as he made his way into the corner, he just takes a bit too much apex curve. It unsettles the front right side of the suspension, and the rear end comes down like a ton of bricks and said, we're going round, and it has not worked out for the Half Fast Gaming driver, but it has worked out for Luke Garr in the fact that after that contact and the fact they had to settle it with the yellow flags waving, well, Endress has sort of helped his teammate out, the fact they had to all tail onto one line, and in the end Luke Garr was made to hold Andrew Pike at bay, but Pike has found his way on past since we returned to live pictures, and he's pressed it on here. But it is the case, the Sim Racing Collective definitely trying to make ground with all the chaos on that opening lap. But meanwhile, it is the case that Samuel Foch has moved up into P10. He's made his way past Renandito, and whilst we can't get a replay of that, what we can see is he's now going hunting after Kieran Sharp for P9 as they make the way through turn number 7, and as they roll the way on through here, it is the case charging on down towards 8. Ahead of them is Matt Camelio in P8, and right now he's feeling pretty secure, but here comes Foch looking up the inside of Sharp into the corner, and Sharp there back it off, and Foch going all in there. He knows that he can go hunting after a top 5 finish nice and early on in this race. Given everything that's happened, that field has essentially been knocked out of his way for him, and well, as the seas have been parted, it is the case now that the Triple Eight driver looking to bring home a top 5. He is pushing hard, and its pace is indicative of it as he makes his way into turn number 10. But as he rolls his way on through here, it is the case, looking a little bit further up the order, we look back up towards what is our P7 driver from Salt Community Racing, much like Foch, of what is headwind here as he chases after Jonathan Reed, and as they head into turn number 1, it is the case of both drivers right now in a bit of a deadlock and heading all the way up to turn number 4. So as they roll the way on through here, it is the case that we can see that Headwind right now trying to go on the offensive. It is one of those cases where I think Headwind feels today's got a bit more pace, but in return, it's the case that Jonathan Reed's not going to let this go, and Reed goes defensive on the inside here into the bus stop chicane. Headwind's got his nose ahead already, he's going to commit, but in the end there we can see that Reed gets it done. Headwind in fact having to really back the car out, missing his braking point to the extent he almost put it on the grass there, and as he makes his way on through, it is the case the 844 driver is trying to size up the move, it hasn't worked out, and now he's giving himself more of a gap to close down. But to be fair, in these tricky dark conditions, it is the case when you try to go side by side into the bus stop chicane with no ambient lighting at the circuit either, it is the case that you may not be able to see exactly where that apex curve starts at the bus stop chicane, and you can end up dipping 2 wheels onto the grass and unsettling the car. As he makes his way on around here and plays the catch-up game once again, it is the case we look from him back up towards our leaders, and here are your top 3 right now. And as we ride on board the leader of Harry Phillips from Watkins Racing, trying to break away on the exit of turn 9 versus Karapinen, it is the case that Karapinen staying right with Phillips as he rolls his way through turn number 10. And it's interesting to see here how after their brief exchange of the position, how Karapinen's keeping the pressure on, but Phillips is the leader, and I would imagine, I'm not saying that he's been given the lead voluntarily, but I can imagine that Karapinen right now keeping that pressure on here as Phillips goes defensive. I wonder if both of these drivers are running on similar strategies, and Karapinen's trying to do some fuel saving behind right now, where they both decide to go for sprint strategies, so they're going to look at pit as early as possible come the start of the pit window, so within the first 10 minutes of it, to fuel up to the end of the race, because we can see here that Phillips under pressure, but he's trying to break away, and that's why he's going defensive. He does not want Karapinen to get back in front. Now it sounds obvious, but it's a sign of strategy here in the fact he wants that track positional authority. Karapinen meanwhile is literally throwing little feints, little moves left, right and centre here. Now whether he wants to fully commit to getting the place back or not is another question, but trying to get into the heads of the Wild Things Racing driver here, and that could just work to his advantage, because all the time he's behind on the straights, he can short shift a little bit, he can put the car in a fuel saving engine map and just give himself a little bit more fuel to go deeper into his first stint, and it could work out in the long run. But as they make the way down the hill, you can see Troy get behind as Phillips meanwhile gets a tank of oversteer there, coming out to turn number 6, and that shows you A, how hard he's pushing, but also B, how much on the edge he is as he makes his way through toe corner at 7, and as they come on 8, goes a little bit wide, and this could be the opportunity that Karapinen needs as they make their way down towards turn 8. Karapinen on the left of the picture, Phillips on the right. Karapinen's got his nose ahead, and I think this is done and dusted for the time being, or is it as Karapinen's on that inside line? Phillips tries to come back, but Karapinen parks the car nicely, but he's got to defend up the hill into turn number 8, turn number 9 I should say, and as they go side by side into the corner, there's only one way out of the corner, and it's one line as they make the way up towards 10, but as they do, Phillips is not backing out here, he's going for it, and as they roll the way through 10 into 11, Phillips is looking for a return move here. I think he's worried if Karapinen is given the time to lead this race, he will break away eventually, and that's not what he wants, and also that may be a sign that Phillips does not have that much fuel in the car. As they make their way across that timeline once again. Now 14 minutes into this race, another 16 before we get to that pit window and start to find out what the strategy is playing out. Tim Troquette's right behind the pair here in the battle for the lead. It's the trio for the lead, and then we have Liam Page has fallen back quite sizably, and meanwhile Vulcan Pakiridan has found his way past Jonathan Reed, and Jonathan Reed, I'm not exactly sure what's happened to Reed, but it is the case he's fallen down to P6 and fallen down quite sizably, and he does now have Salt Community Racing's Headwinder behind in P7. But as they roll the way on through, we look down to Drew Matthews in P16. The half-fast gaming driver right now chasing after his teammate Luis Arguizu as they make their way into turn number 10 here, and half-fast gaming enjoying some very strong positions right now. Not saying they'll finish here, given the fact their pace is not quite to that necessary as the drivers are trying to come up behind them, such as Evan Natafas running in the 46s compared to Matthews and Arguizu running in the 47s. But you would have to imagine as Drew Matthews there sets a 47.0. Now, that was his best lap, and that last lap from Matthews, in fact, was a 53. I don't know what's gone wrong there, but it is the case. There's a lot of drivers behind who feel they've got the pace to come on through, and, well, when they get close enough, will they be able to force the issue, or will half-fast gaming go defensive and really try to hold on? That'll be the big question. But as they roll the way on around here, we'll look to one driver who right now has got a lot of pace in the car, but he's got to try and find a way to extract it, given how far back he is, and that is Nick Timmermans here, making his way through turn number 4 and all the way out towards the bus that chicane. He's chasing after Luke Garr for P18. And as he makes his way down the straightaway here, no movement at the moment in terms of getting too close for a move. He's just creeping closer little by little. But as they make the way on around here, is the case. We started with 30 drivers. We've still got 30 drivers in this race despite it. Oh, that's a whack to the wall for Luke Garr there. Getting it wrong into turn number 5. The car snapping loose and Timmons gains a place. And sometimes it will just be by attrition from the circuit. And of course, Watkins Glens, a circuit that's loved, but it's also disliked sometimes for the fact it can really bite you if you get it wrong in equal measure. But I think it's a much loved circuit on the whole by drivers. But as they roll the way on around at this point, a walking contradiction I sound like, but I think you get my picture. It's the case you love it when it's going right, but when you get it wrong you absolutely hate it because it will punish you severely. It is the case. One driver who knows about loving it right now is Randy Renandito as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, and he's right behind Kieran Sharp at this point in time. And to be fair, after the pace we saw from Kieran Sharp earlier on, I think after that contact that we saw, Kieran Sharp's pace has dipped a little bit here, and as a result, I think with the damage he may have picked up on the front end, that front aero damage means he won't be cutting as nice a line through the air, but hitting the straights he may be losing 1 to 2 mile an hour top speed in the run up to, say, the bus stop chicane here. That may be giving Renandito what he needs to get a bit closer and go on the offensive as they make the way into the bus stop chicane. Now we can also see there in what is the Twitch chat, well, in fact in the YouTube chat, we'll come back to that very shortly, in fact with Renandito getting closer and closer. There was that big question of course about around the red flag. I have had it confirmed there will not be a red flag for this race, so we're not expecting any red flags. Now of course we've been racing for some time since the incident, but it could have been called a couple of minutes after, but there is confirmation there will be no red flag to this one as they carry on around. But Renandito staying as close as possible to Kieran Sharp, and also saying hello there to Marcus Fox, who in his own words, oh wow, with regards to what happened early on. Indeed, oh wow. And I think it is the case now. We've got plenty more to flabbergast us as the time goes on here, because we've got some big battles building up and also some big recovery drives that are starting to take shape. And one of the major ones right now that is being built upon little by little is the fact that you've got Tom Davidson, who in P21 he is lapping in the 44s. And to put that in perspective, the only other drivers lapping in the 44s, that's your top 3, in fact your top 4 right now, and top 5 in fact, as all the new lap times coming in. It is the case, the top 5 are in the 44s, Davidson's in the 44s, everybody else is in 45s or higher, so keep your eyes on this guy. He will have to make another pit stop with that pit window of course, but he has got a lot of time to go and he's got a long road to recovery as he rolls his way on around. But as we look from Davidson in P21 to our race leader in P1 at Carpinen, so you may be wondering at this point, how do we know who has taken their pit stop and who hasn't in terms of that pit window? If you look to the time down the left-hand side of your screen, you will see between the driver's door number, so in the case of Carpinen 817, and where we see the number of laps he's accrued, or the drivers behind him in terms of their time delta to the driver in front. It is the case we do have a rectangle there which will be orange in coloration if they've still got an outstanding pit stop, and there'll be a white number in there which will be a 1, which means there's 1 mandatory pit stop to go. Or once they've cleared that pit stop, which we'll see in the pit window, it will go green, and that means mandatory pit stop cleared, and therefore they are now happy to carry on to the finish in terms of racing. But as the racing presses on here, Carpinen starting to break away a little bit on this lap, getting the gap open to Harry Phillips to 9/10 of a second. Phillips staying with him, but I think it is the case that Carpinen starting to extract that pace we saw in qualifying, that absolutely scintillating pace as he made his way onto that qualifying pole at that 42.9, which really I think sent reverberations down through the paddock. But as he makes his way on out of the corner here and up towards turn number 10, it is the case the 817 driver here really pushing on. He's got a little bit of traffic in front of him, and we're trying to see who that is specifically in front. I do believe that may actually be Christoph Samin, unless I'm mistaken. The DC Sim Racing driver down in P29, but I could be wrong as they make their way across the timeline. In fact, I think it is Ricardo McKing. Well, no, it's not Ricardo McKing. That's a Wild Things Racing Machine, and we're just trying to understand who specifically is. That's Evan Natafas. In fact, we've just had confirmation it is Natafas in front, running in what is P22 there, and Natafas backing off to let the leaders through. As we see it there, it's the case. A bit further back, Tim Troquet falling in the way. But meanwhile, in the battle for P14 here, we've got Tom Griffiths from Quantum Racing Team on the left of your picture, and Lewis Gar gets on the right, and Argitsu pulls into the middle of the road here. A little bit of latency from what was there Drew Matthews, who goes around the outside of Tom Griffiths, who's going a bit slowly. I wonder if Griffiths has got a problem with the car because, well, he was trying to battle, but he's lost out, and Argitsu and Matthews both really seizing this opportunity as they make the way out of turn number 9 and up towards 10, and the half-fast gaming drivers are definitely right now enjoying these higher positions and trying to seal and capitalise on them for the purpose of the rest of this race, but as they make the way through turn at number 11 to complete their current lap, it is the case that Tom Griffiths going a bit slowly. Now, whether it's the case he's just had a little bit of a knock to his momentum, or whether there's a wider problem with the car, we'll have to wait and see, but Griffiths there really losing a lot of time in a short space of corners, and not the way you want that to go, and that could be a sign of a bigger problem. But speaking of bigger problems right now, Luke Gart, after having a couple of spins earlier on, it is the case, the Canadian driver now under pressure from Tom Davidson. Well, in fact, is that Tom Davidson alongside? No, it's not. That's DC Sim Racing's driver of Christoph Samin, who is a lap down on Luke Gar, and it is the case that Samin trying to come through, and then here is Tom Davidson, who is a further 1.5 seconds behind, trying to now close up to the half-fast gaming driver for P20, but as they roll the way on through the corners here, it is the case we look from them up to P9 driver Sir Foch, and it is the case right now the Salt Community Racing driver chasing after Matt Camelio, and well, Camelio, I think he will be told by the team principal down the radio, do not let Foch through, do everything you can, because SOP Motorsport need every point here to be able to secure their guaranteed P2 in the championship. I think they'll feel confident that P2 is coming their way, with DC Sim Racing losing a lot of places for their drivers on that open lap instant, but you can never take anything for granted, and as Foch gets closer and closer, Camelio right now running in P8, I think he's really got to dig in for this one, because that P8 could be a lifeline for the team later on in this race. To be fair, they've got Liam Page up in P4, they've got Jonathan Reid in P6, and well, their only other driver here not quite up there in terms of the points, but as they roll the way on around right now, it is the case that Camelio definitely in a strong position, and well, Foch getting closer and closer here as they make the way up onto the straight, and as they do, we ride on board with the Salt Community Racing driver. He's getting close, he's got a very strong run here, and look at the speed as he takes his way into the chicane, and you can see Camelio there by comparison as he appears in the rear view mirror, almost as if he was stationary by comparison. I think that goes to show you that Foch is running significantly less downforce on the car, and also getting a much better run out of turn 1, and to be fair, if you nail 90 right as it's nicknamed because of the fact it's a right angled corner, it's a 90-degree corner, and it's a right-hander, it is the case you can carry almost 2 to 4 miles an hour more speed than the rider in front of you with that draft combined into the bus stop chicane, but that was absolutely flying from Foch. He's up into P8, but as he makes his way on out here and they come through turn number 7, you can imagine that Camelio will try and stay with him as Renandito in P10 is also trying to get into this hump as they come out to the corner. Renandito does have Kieran Sharp for company behind in the battle for P10, and as they make their way down to the braking zone for turn, well, it's turn at number 8 at this point, they've also got Joey Fissians, who is gradually trying to get closer and closer, albeit Fissians right now a little bit further back, and they do have between them Richard Pixley, who is down the field, further down the field, who right now in P24 is between them and the P12 driver. But as they roll the way on through here, is the case where number driver's been in the pits to have repair work done to the car. It does mean that as a result they have fallen multiple laps down, and they still got an extra pit stop to do, and they might try and do something to make that mandatory stop, if you will, become a much shorter stop. So they might have taken on some extra fuel in the pits to get themselves to the end nice and early, although to be fair, I don't think the BMW M4's fuel tank can quite go a full 90 minutes at Watkins Glens. I think he can get close and with some fuel saving make it, but that fuel saving will take a lot of pace out of the car. If so, then again some lift and coast can really help out with that, but it is a consideration for our drivers as well as they make the way on around. Speaking of trying to make the way up positions, here is Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective. He's now chasing after both Drew Matthews and Lewis Argitsu for P14 still, and as he gets closer and closer for him, Davidson found his way past Endres only moments ago. As we see Davidson here in P19 for Rapid Drivers Club, but as they make the way through turn number 9, takes a little bit of grass for himself there, and it is the case, pushing that march, goes to show he's trying to gain places, but pushed too hard, he may end up going places that he doesn't want, particularly into that exit walk turn number 9, but as he comes through the corner here, we look to P14, Lewis Argitsu. And the American right now making his way on up the hill, and it is the case staying well clear of Matthews and Pike, but I wonder how long it'll be before Matthews starts to feel that pressure from Pike behind. As they head down the straightaway here, a little bit further behind them, we do see it is the case of Nick Timmerman's here now making his way onto the straight. It is the case of DC Sim Racing driver in P18. He's got a lot of ground still to recover, to be fair to him, but he is recovering it at a nice rate, although he's lapping it in the low 47s right now, and I think he does have a bit of damage to the front of that car. We do see the bonnet is slightly raised compared to some of the other cars around the circuits. That may be costing quite a bit of time on the straights and also making it a bit difficult to navigate into the corners, getting a bit of understeer and turning, but we'll have to wait and see whether that is a fact in actuality. But as he heads on down, and we look to what is our race leader once again here, where it is the case early on we were talking about the fact that Harry Phillips was falling away. That gap between the leaders, 9 tenths of a second, in fact 8 tenths as they come into the bus stop chicane, but they do have the Quantum Racing team driver between them there, and we are trying to fathom who that is as they go a little bit deeper. Harry Phillips makes his way on through, and well, the racing resumes as is as they make their way out of the corner. But as they now come down into turn number 6 here, it is the case that Phillips definitely trying to keep Carpine in his sight, so I think Carpine has got other ideas and he is executing those very gradually indeed as they make their way into toe corner. But as they roll their way through the corner and now on to what is the back straight, we look from them to Randy Renandito here as he gives his pursuit of Matt Camilio. And Camilio, of course, being passed only moments ago by Sir Vosh, who's now up into P8 for Salt Community Racing. And now we see the Rapid Drivers Club driver from Poland here, Renandito, trying to replicate what Vosh has done. But I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge here. I don't think he'll quite have that 2 to 5 mile an hour boost down the straight by comparison and be able to make the move there necessarily, given the fact we've seen these two cars are very close on pace by relative comparison. But then again, one mistake could be the difference as they roll their way out to turn number 7. As they come onto the back straight themselves here, it is the case that Kieran Sharp not too far behind either, 1.5 seconds back, and you can see him here making his way into the middle of the road, interestingly enough there, and I wonder what that's about, where he feels as though he's getting a bit too much of a distant draft of a Renandito, and perhaps it's overheating the front end of the car, perhaps he's closed up those brake ducts, and it is the case the front tyres really feeling the pinch of temperature. That's the only thing I can imagine, but drifting into the middle of the road, normally we would see that if it was a wet weather race, for the simple reason that's where the standing water would be to cool down wet tyres when they're overheating. And well, speaking of overheating, we saw plenty of overheated wet tyres after the race at Vulcan Park 2 weeks ago, but no wet weather here today. It is the case that it is clear skies, it's night time, but it's clear, and that means for our drivers, all the things they hold dear is in terms of pace and strategy. They can't make something magical happen on the weather. But speaking of something magical happening, Renandito, they're taking a peek to the inside of Camilio into turn 1, didn't make it work, and in the end he's had to reset the car a little bit there in terms of the front end, but Renandito bearing its fangs early on. And to be fair, if that's one way of sending a message, it's a way of sending a message that says, I want that P9 off of you. And now Camilio has definitely got to respond as we ride on board here. Camilio just going really slowly by comparison in the route towards the bus stop chicane, and Renandito coming on through. And I think Camilio is running maximum downforce in that car. Alternatively, if he is lifting off for whatever reason, he is thinking about a bigger strategy, because that last lap from Renandito of 45.777 compared to Camilio's 46.502. Could it be that Camilio's got a lot more fuel in the car, or perhaps he's doing some lift and coasters when he doesn't mind losing places, he's trying to go to the end? And also another thing that could be in mind here, could we be seeing SOP Motorsport do what they did at Kyalami for some of their drivers? Could they be trying to go the race without that tyre change and give themselves more than 5 seconds back, but giving themselves loads of time back in the pits by not taking that second set of tyres? Because imagine if you only got to stay in the pits for 13 seconds in order to put fuel in the car. Meanwhile, it's the case that it is, if my memory serves me correctly, a 30-second stop for tyres by comparison. That's 17 seconds gain that needs to be closed down. And well, I think right now Camillo might be trying to preserve the tyres as they make the way out to turn number 9. But as he rolls his way on through and into turn number 10 here, it is the case that pit window is not too far away. It is now only 1.5 minutes away by the time they emerge from the final corner to go on to lap number 17. But you can see how everybody now grouping together. We've also got Kieran Sharp here in P11. Behind them we have one of the SOP Motorsport machines that's trying to find its way on through as they make their way down. I think that's Danny Burston, in fact, and Danny being caught, of course, in that instant on the open lap between himself and Fisher as they make their way into turn number 1. Once again, he is a whole lap down in P27, and it's gone from a dream debut to a disaster debut, you could say, in some respects with regards to the race, but still Burston keeping his head down and trying to get on with the proceedings. And it's going to be a difficult one for the stewards to unentangle afterwards. But as they make their way through the kink of 4 here, you can see the Bison trying to also get into the mix. He's on that inside trying to come through. Kieran Sharp here, we've got the 2 S&P Motorsport drivers who are literally blocking the road there. Oh, goodness me, Sharp turning what looks to be Camelio across, flashing his lights there to apologise, and Camelio sent a long way round the houses. To be fair, he's avoided the wall, and as he rejoins here, well, Kieran Sharp flashes his lights, I think, to say, I do apologise, but it's the case that Camelio, I think, having his heart in his mouth and absolutely scared about that one. We take a look back. Whereas only moments ago, I'm riding on board here with Kieran Sharp. We watched what happened from the perspective of the Sim Racing Collective driver, and he looked between the two of them here, and he took a look on the inside, broke just a little bit too late, and tapped Camelio. And as he rejoined there, we took it gradually, avoiding rejoining on the racing line and onto the tarmac there. But it is the case for Kieran Sharp. It has not been a day he may necessarily want to remember so far with the way it's gone. Now, to be fair, I'm not pushing the blame entirely on him. We don't know all the specifics and whatnot, but definitely looking from his perspective, just coming in a little bit hot. And, well, to be fair, Kieran Sharp has yielded the position back to Camelio. I think he knows he's at fault for that one in his mind, and therefore Camelio has given the place back. But as we say that, the pit window is now open, and immediately into the pits is Jonathan Reed from P6. Now, what will this reveal? I think it's going to reveal here that S&P Motorsport may be going for the no tyre change gamble, given the fact that Reed has come in immediately, and also the field is massively spread out here. They've got a lot of space to play with, given the opening lap instant, and Matt Camelio in as well. And Camelio will have some damage to the car after that contact with Sharp. Now, given the fact that he was made to go sliding across the circuit, that will not help the tyres, that may have flat spotted the tyres. Does that mean he is forced to take a tyre change that he won't have wanted? Joe Vissian's in as well, and these guys all deciding to go early, and it makes sense when the field is so scattered and we've got multiple drivers who are a lap down. They may as well go for the gamble here, which is to go in early if they feel it's appropriate. But meanwhile, all the way up the front, we can see that Team Karapinen staying out in front and not coming in. He's 1.7 seconds clear of Harry Phillips, and the Finn continues to roar on here as they make the way through turn number 9. As they come through the left hand and now into the final 2 corners here. I think Phillips at this point is probably thinking, what do I have to do to catch Karapinen? Well, I think the thing he's got to consider here is what has Karapinen got up his sleeve. Indeed, what is Phillips working with here? It may be the case that he has not got much fuel in the car. He may have to peel on him, but he's not showing any signs of sliding this time around. And in fact, he shows no signs of sliding when he briefly taps the exit wall there, and that's not going to help settle the nerves. But as he makes his way out of the corner and down towards turn 1, a bit further behind Tim Troquet here, and it is the case he's dealing with a little bit of a traffic jam situation with regards to what is there. I believe that is Ricardo McKing from Quantum Racing Team just ahead of him, and also there we do have, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that may have been Lewis Argitsu backing off behind. Well, in fact, that was not, as they make the way on through. In this case, that is Jack Southwood, I believe, as they roll their way on through the corners. But as they head on up here, we've got a car turned. Oh, goodness me, and what's this? That is Chris Davies jumping to the pit. What happened to Davies? Well, this was only months ago. In fact, Chris Davies going really slowly initially. We were looking away for a brief moment, and as he made his way into the corner here, well, something has gone very, very wrong for Davies. He came up the hill, going into turn number 2, nothing there. Oh, goodness me, in fact, taking a bit of grass and a whack to the wall there for Chris Davies. Just turned in too early into turn 2, and the car rolling away from us. We see somebody onto the brakes nice and early, and Davidson then having to jump to the pit. It has not worked out, and the Quantum Racing Team driver all the way at the back of the field now with that jump to the pit. As meanwhile, Kieran Sharp into the pit, and he's decided to go early. We've also got Andrew Pike, Nick Timmons, they've cleared their pit stops, but none of our top 10 outside the ones we've previously seen coming in addition to what is Sharp and also Reed. And well, that might be the case, and also Camelio, in fact. And well, where is Jonathan Reed? He was our leading early pitter. He's come out in P15, and where he is at the moment, he's 4.5 seconds off of Griffiths in P14, and he has got behind him what is Endres all the way at 12 seconds behind. Jonathan Reed has found himself some space on circuit, and I think for Jonathan Reed, this could be the right call at the right time, because he's giving himself all the room in the world now to play with, and if he can nail these laps, treat every lap for the next 30 minutes as if it's a qualifying lap, he may just be able to jump his way from P6 up into that top 5, but we'll have to wait to see for certain if that's the case. Keeping in mind, of course, Vulcan Pakiridan, currently in P5, is lapping in the 45s and showing no sign of slowing down, we should say, as meanwhile, it is the case, these pit stops continue, and as they do, we hear that Lewis Argitsu has moved up into P10, as Drew Matthews has got it slightly wrong out of the circuit. His teammate has fallen behind. Indeed, all the pit stops playing on out right now, And we look to Daryl Young here in P21, the Watkins Racing driver here, who is right now chasing after, I believe that's Joey Fissian's in front of him, P20, as they make their way across that timeline. And in fact, they'll both be gaining places here with drivers in the pits, but Daryl Young is yet to take his mandatory stop. Meanwhile, Fissians has taken his stop, and to be fair, he's gone all in as Fissians by going early. And as they make their way on around onto another lap here, we're starting to see that interweaving, but a lot of drivers going within the first 5 minutes of this pit window and deciding just to throw the dice. But meanwhile, nobody in the top 5 flinching right now, all staying up there. And speaking of one of them staying up there, we haven't really talked about him for some time. This is Liam Page here, making his way through turn number 7 right now, and he's got a nice gap of what is 4 seconds to Vulcan Pakiridan behind. But keep in mind with Liam Page, he is being caught currently on average at 1 to 1.5 seconds a lap by Pakiridan, and I think that is a sign that Page is going long on his opening stint, or potentially he's going for the conservative strategy, which is to save the tyres and do the one stop without the tyre change, whereas it may be the case that Pakiridan, by comparison, may opt to go for that tyre change here. And well, in terms of our drivers who pitted so far, it is the case, I think the vast majority have gone for what is tyre changes and putting fuel in the car as well, and therefore that is a sign. I think a lot of them decided to go all in, apart from Christoph Samin. In fact, he has decided to only go for the fuel addition. He has not gone for a tyre change. He's down in P29, however, and therefore he's had to throw everything and throw all caution to the wind with regards to that strategy. As they make the way on around, we are in the Jonathan Reed is now to P13. Kieran Sharp has come out behind Reed, interestingly enough, and as they make the way on the hill, Liam Page flashing his lights furiously here. He does not want to be held up by anyone. He's made his way past one of the half-fast gaming drivers, and now he's making his way past the Quantum Racing Team driver there as he comes on through. It was Lucar, he passed up a moment ago, and that's Ricardo McKing. He's just found his way past. McKing up running in P24, Lucar P25. Meanwhile, looking into the pit lane, we see Steve Endres here from Half-Fast Gaming has come in from P17. He's decided enough's enough. He's currently being serviced, and as he is currently being worked on, anybody else into the pits not currently, other than what we have Chris Davies there, who's been repaired and worked on. But meanwhile, we look from the midfield to the front of the field, and Karapinen right now continuing to gradually open that lead up. It's now 2.1 seconds. He on that last lap was almost 2/10 faster than Harry Phillips, and on this lap so far, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But I get the feeling that Karapinen may be a little bit slower, given the fact he's had to deal with a little bit of traffic, and that's Jonathan Reed in particular behind him. And this is an interesting one. Remember, Reed pitted from P6. That shows you how much time is being lost in the pits here. The fact that he has come out behind the race leader, and Jonathan Reed's pit stop, well, it was a 32.6 second stop, which means he did take tyres in that pit stop. So Jonathan Reed deciding to play it safe and put fuel and the tyres on the car, well, as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 at this point. I can imagine for the 105 driver, it is the case here. They don't want to, at SOP Motorsport, squander a definite top 10 finish in their mind as he makes his way up onto another lap. But of course here, will we see anybody from SOP Motorsport then decide to go for that much shorter stop, or will they just simply all decide, you know what, we've got to play it safe here today? Well, all the pit stops so far, apart from the pit stop from what is Danny Byston and also from what is Christoph Samin, they're currently P27 and P29 respectively. They are all tyre change stops, as we're to understand it. So it may be the case that everybody deciding, you know what, play it safe here today and just bring those points home. But who will gamble? That is the question. And surely somebody's got to gamble and not taking tyres. As they make the way on through here, it is the case that Reed staying up behind the leader right now, albeit a lap down, and Harry Phillips not really close enough to have the blue flags waving for him. Meanwhile, we look to Daryl Young here in P18, the Watkins Racing driver who is chasing after Joey Fissians. But of course, the thing for Daryl Young is he's yet to take his mandatory stop in this pit window. 22 minutes is still remaining, so he will drop a bit further back here. He is crisscrossing with drives on a different strategy, and as they make the way in the long charge here in front of him, I do believe that's where the Rapid Drivers Club drives. Not sure who exactly it is, as we see Fissians, they're getting it very wrong through the exit of the bus stop chicane, and rejoins behind the pair, and as he makes his way back up to speed, Fissians there having a little bit of a heart stopper. That could have gone a lot worse, but to be fair, that's not the way you want it to go after your pit stops. That's going to cost him some significant time as he makes his way on down the hill. But as he heads up towards turn number 7, we look from him to a bit further down the order, in particular to hit Fisher, as we do see here the Dutchman in P28. Well, at this point, he's just got to try and bring it on home, and the fact that the Assault Community Racing Team team, they will feel as though they've got one hand on the trophy, but they will not want any of their drivers to retire until it's all said and done, just in case. And speaking of things being all said and done, it is the case that Davidson here in a hot pursuit versus Matthews as they make their way down the straight here up towards the bus stop chicane. Matthews on the right, Davidson on the left as they make their way into the braking zone. And as they do, oh goodness me, and there's contact between the two of them, but Davidson survives the contact. And that, in fact, that was Lewis Argitsu, my apologies, not Drew Matthews. Well, I think there Argitsu taking it a little bit errantly. We take a look back as they made the way into the corner, and we right on board looking back here from Lewis Argitsu, who was defending that P11 position. Now coming on down the straight, you'll see that Davidson gets a huge draft there, and as they make the way into the corner, well, we will see where it was a whack to the wall as he came into the corner. Well, he hit that curve very hard. In fact, it was the case in the end, bouncing over the curb and not working out. So no whack to the wall there, just hitting that curb too hard and straight line into the side of Davidson. And for Argitsu, it has cost him very dear. He's lost 2 places in a huge amount of time. Meanwhile, Davidson right now, nothing stopping him. It's the case, remember I said, watch out for him. He's going to be a fast charger, and he is charging now after Drew Matthews in P10 as they roll the way on through. We've got Ike Headwind into the pit from what was P8. He's decided to come in as the Salt Community Racing driver, but meanwhile, Tom Davidson is the man with a plan on a charge, and as he chases after Matthews, I think it's going to be about when, not if, he's going to be making that move as they roll the way out of the corner and down towards turn number 1. And will Matthews be ready for him? Will Davidson gets a really good run out to 1 across the timeline. They go onto lap number 23 and onto the brakes. They both battle and into the right hand there, and Davidson gets it done initially as Harry Phillips is into the pit lane for his second place. So he's the first of the top 2 to fold, and will Carpino respond next time around? That'll be the question as they make the way on through. Will Davidson here, I think, feeling secure. I think he's got more straight line speed in the car compared to Matthews. Of course, both cars being identical in terms of engines, it all comes down to the aero package they're running, and I think right now Matthews run a little bit more aero, and Tom Davidson comfortably up into P10 in the end. Might also be the case there. Matthews running a bit more fuel, you never know, but we are almost to the halfway point of this race, almost to the halfway point of the pit window, and as they make the way on around, Davidson continues to gain places. I'll get into the pits, P16. And well, Harry Phillips being serviced right now, and as he is waiting that pit box there to be released, it is the case. He drops off the jacks. He goes out once again. He's dropped down to P7 here as he makes his way on out. Now he'll know what he's got to deal with, but you could see there as the camera looks back towards the exit of turn number 11, there's nobody for a long margin in the run all the way down towards turn number 1. And for Harry Phillips, that is going to give him a lot of comfort in the fact he'll have nobody close, and he can just simply run in clear air now, and will Carpino respond at the next lap. Given the fact that Phillips has bought himself a huge amount of space, we will have to wait and see. But as he makes his way on out to the right hander here of turn number 2 and up the hill he rolls, we look to our race leader here of Carpino very shortly making his way onto our screens out to turn 9 and up into 10. And as the Salt Community Racing driver leads this race by an advantage of 10 seconds over what is Team Troquet at this time. You can imagine here the Salt Community Racing driver just keeping it nice and smooth, not getting any mistakes, not getting it wrong at all, and just putting in lap after lap. That last lap of 44.6, that lap of 44.4, it is the case. He is definitely delivering those laps time and time again as he makes his way on around. Indeed, the fastest lap of this race is held by him. It's a 43.735. Definitely delivering right now is Karapinen as he heads on around. As he makes his way on through, we look a little bit further down the order. Nick Tillmans has just found his way past what is Lewis Argitsu, who's come back out behind in P19. And as they make the way into turn number 7 at this point, it is the case that Tillmans definitely continues to charge. You can see a lot of drivers have now completed that mandatory pit stop within the pit window. We've still got a few to go, to be fair, mixed up and down the order, and we're getting that interweaving of the strategies. But it is the case, a lot of drivers deciding to go early rather than late today. And well, whoever goes late here, they're going to have a lot of track position to play with before they come into the pits, and it may just work out to their advantage, especially if we start to see a scramble or some battles further down the field. And well, here is Jonathan Reed, who right now makes his way out the inside there of what is Drew Matthews for P11 into turn number 7. And as they make the way out to the corner here, Reed is flying right now, there's no doubt about that, as he makes his way down towards that turn at number 8. For those wondering, by the way, with regards to Harry Phillips' stop, did he take tyres or not? He took tyres, as we're to understand it. It was an over 30-second stop, and it is the case he charges on with a fresh pair of boots. And meanwhile, Jonathan Reed here, of course, on tyres which were fresh when they came out the pits. They're not as fresh right now, given the fact he was one of our very first drivers to pit. In fact, he was our first driver to pit when the pit window opened just after the 30-minute clear mark. It is the case that Jonathan Reed right now continuing to push on. He has lost a place to Ickett Headwind, as we're to understand it, I believe. No, in fact, Ickett Headwind was ahead of him before the pit stop was made. And we'll have to see where they all come out when it's all said and done. But the SOP Motorsport driver now definitely looking to deliver a top 10 finish here today for the team to give them that P2 in the standings when all is said and done. But as we look from him to Liam Page, Page is into the pit lane here. A safe run into the pit lane, not an aggressive one. He's lost himself a bit of time on the run to the pit limiter there. But to be fair, I think he's going to be safe rather than sorry. But Vulcan Pakiridan goes into P3 for the time being. We know the Rapid Drivers Cup driver from America needs to take his mandatory pit stop still. But here's the man who right now is lapping on the pace, much like Davidson down in P10, his teammate. Those two from Rapid Drivers Cup are the rather dark horses of this race, given the fact that they are delivering a huge amount of pace at this point in the race. And keep your eyes out for them as Sir Fosh moves up to P4 with Page in the pits. And indeed, that's going to release a number of drivers. But Pakiridan really now has to deliver. If he can deliver the next couple of laps, there is no reason why he may not end up in that P3 versus Page when they all emerge from the pits. But to be fair as well, we do still have all the faction of Harry Phillips getting into the mix. We also do have there, of course, the fact that Troquet has yet to take his pit stop, so we can't all count it out, and we'll have to wait and see. I think that Pakiridan and Page will be battling for P4 rather than P3, as things currently stand, doing a bit of mental maths of where everybody is. Page is still being serviced now, and it's a long pit stop for Liam Page, as he is still making his way in the pit lane, as we're to understand. He's made his way out almost, and in fact, it's a slightly longer stop for the SOP Motorsport driver, but it is the case he's jumped back out in PA, and I think he's in a safe PA in terms of he's come out on a clear piece of track, and that's going to give him the ability to fight with this man when Pakiridan finally comes into the pits. And we think that pit stop is going to be soon, not later, as meanwhile into the pits on the latest race comes the Finnish driver from Salt Community Racing of Team Karpinen. He makes his way on down, and well, Tim Troquet goes on to lead a lap of this race at least, as he makes his way onto lap number 27 here. And the Dutchman right now from DC Sim Racing, well, if his task was to try and hold track position all the way through the pit window, this is what he's going for, and he'll be doing it well, because he's now the leader. He's got nobody ahead of him to battle with at this time. He's just got clear track, the occasional back marker, if you will, but no major challenges in front of him. We can see there were the half-fast gaming drivers making their way on down the straight up towards the bus stop chicane, but right now Tim Troquet has got a lot of breathing room. But where is Karpinen? There he is, still in the pits. Where is Harry Phillips? Phillips right now making his way out of turn number 9. Karpinen still being serviced, so this is the battle for the lead. Phillips rolling through. Karpinen's come down off the jacks, and well, as we hear that Sir Fosh is into the pit lane as well, Karpinen making his way on out, just creeping his way to the pit exit, and it is a fast stop. And as he makes his way on down here behind, we can see by the Rapid Drivers Club machines, and here comes Karpinen out. Where is Phillips? There comes Phillips on down, and as he rolls his way through turn 1, well, it's going to be close here, and in fact, it's not as close as it was when they both diverged when Phillips came in first, but that gap currently standing at 2 seconds. It's about really where it was when the pit stops kicked off, and as they make the way on through, Team Karpinen has jumped back ahead of Harry Phillips after the pit stops. It is the case Karpinen effectively your race leader, as we're to understand it, once the pit window closes. But as they roll the way on through, we're hearing that Sir Fosh in the pit lane right now, still being serviced. He's going to drop down the order gradually. He's come off the jacks now, as they make the way on around Ickett Headwind, getting ahead of his teammate there. Fosh making his way on out meanwhile, and well, the next driver would be Jonathan Reed. And where is Jonathan Reed? This is going to be close between the two, in the fact that Reed has not had this work out for him, and in fact, as he makes his way on through, Jonathan Reed has gone from P6 to P9. This has not been a successful undercut from Jonathan Reed, quite the converse. It has gone completely in the opposite direction. He's lost 3 places for the price of a pit stop, and that is not what SOP Motorsport wanted. Now, can we read into any of this in terms of the pit stop time? I think we can, in the fact that Jonathan Reed's total pit stop was much longer than anybody else's in the group, and I wonder if that was some repair work being done on the car, given the early instant on the opening lap, and whether Reed had repair work to do, because his stop was considerably longer by the best part of what was 10 seconds, and that has cost him dearly. Meanwhile, Retnandito, as he makes his way down, he's coming from P3 here, and as he comes on through, he could also jump himself ahead of Jonathan Reed at this point, or he'll be close to him as he makes his way on down the pit lane. But looking a little bit further down the order, down at P23, here's Steve Endres. who right now is chasing after Evan the toughest in the battle for P22. We've got a disqualification for Hirt Fisher, and well, we're not sure why he's been disqualified there in P30, but it is the case. He has been disqualified and forced to retire, and I believe that's from the automated stewarding rather than anything that's been done by a live steward, given there's no live stewarding in this series. As they make the way around, Fisher definitely with that DQ will not be coming home with any major points here today. It'll be P30 for him at most. As our drivers make the way on around here, it is the case we do have multiple drivers in the pits. Chris Davies in the pit lane, also a Luke Gart in the pit lane as well, and well, they have spent a sizable amount of time in the pits, particularly Luke Gart, who's been in there a long time doing repair work to the car, and Chris Davies as well. It's not working out for them, but as they make the way on down towards turn number 1, you can see Endra's under pressure here as they make the way into the corner, but in the end, it is the case that the DC Sim Racing driver, who is a lap up, I believe, and we're trying to see who that is. I think in fact that may have been Timmermans. It is the case they've come through. Meanwhile, coming into the pits from P2, Vulcan Pakiridan, he's decided to come on in. Tim Troquet is staying out there still as your race lead, and we've got a drive-through penalty for Matt Carmelio, and that's why the SOP Motorsport drivers who's coming in to take that penalty immediately on the lap. It's been awarded. Now here comes Timu Karapinen by comparison, and Will Pakiridan right now, if he's got a short stop on the cars and he decides not to change tyres, it could be a very strong stop and it would jump him a long way out, but of course his pace would falter towards the end of this race. But everybody who has pitted has decided to change tyres in the pits right now. Everyone going for an equal strategy, minus Danny Weisden and also Christoph Samin, but they're a long way down the order. And therefore, as Karpinen comes on through here, where's the case, he retakes P2, and meanwhile, Pakiridan making his way on down. Phillips has already come and passed. Where's Liam Page by comparison? Well, here comes Liam Page. I think Vulcan Pakiridan here is in with a chance of seizing P4 as Liam Page makes his way out the final corner. Pakiridan's about to get to the pit limiter line here for the pit exit, and as he makes his way on through, it's going to be Pakiridan who jumps back up to P4 as Page comes into turn 1. We ride on board with Liam Page as he comes over, he hits the apex curve way too close to the grass, and that is Pakiridan off in the distance, and Liam Page has been jumped by Vulcan Pakiridan, and the Rapid Drivers Cup driver has jumped all the way effectively from just being inside the top 10 to P4 by running long. It has worked out a treat for Pakiridan, and on top of that as well, he's changed tyres at the pit, so it's the case there's not going to be a sudden slope of a pace, and Liam Page there, I think it's the case that seeing Pakiridan get all the way up the order and Page getting it very wrong into the bus stop chicane there. It is the case it has not worked out for SP Motorsport at all, and in fact things seem to be going the opposite way for the team right now, with the fact that Carmelio's had a drive-through penalty that's dropped him back to P13, Page has dropped back to P5, Jonathan Reed in P8. It's the case where they're still looking strong for that P2 finish in the championship, given the fact that Watkins Racing only have one driver inside the top 10 right now of Harry Phillips, and it's the case that DC Sim Racing have only got Tim Troquet up there, but you can imagine that S&P Motorsport right now really cannot afford to have any more big scares here, because it's all going wrong for all four of the major belligerents in the battle for P2, where it's Watkins Racing, DC Sim Racing or SOP Motorsport. But SOP Motorsport of course will not want to lose that place, and they need to keep it together at the last possible moment now. 38 minutes still on the clock here, and as the time continues to trickle down, we only have one driver inside the top 20 yet to take his pit stop, and here he is. He's the focus of our cameraman's attention. It is Tim Troquet here, the DC Sim Racing driver, as he makes his way down towards turn number 8 here, and will the lap times just keep coming on in as if they're one-hit wonder singles right now, 45s and 45s all across the board. But as he makes his way into turn number 9, I think soon he will be knowing that he's running out of time in this pit. We know he's got to pit, and I think he will in the end decide that he's led enough laps of this race at Watkins Glen. Now he will give the lead back to Karpinen. There's no doubt about that, given the relative proximity of the two of them. But then again, could Troquet be playing something? He makes his way into the pit lane, in fact, as soon as we say it, and now stamps on the brakes, puts the limiter on, rolls his way on in, and well, it's been a long stint from Tim Troquet, the longest of anybody. Meanwhile, Karpinen here making his way out of turn number 7 and down towards 8. He's got some time to go, and well, you can imagine if Tim Troquet was to make this pit stop without that tyre change, if he goes all in for it, that would be absolutely stellar for us to see. I'm praying for it in partly just to see what would happen if a driver decides not to change tyres, but I do imagine here that Troket may play it safely as well, given the fact that everybody today seems to have gone for those tyres, and perhaps it is the case just a single set of tyres in pre-practice has just not been able to take the brunt of 90 minutes of Watkins Glen, and that's completely understandable, of course. As Carpina makes his way through the final corner here, he will retake the lead of this race because Troket is still in his pit box. We see him briefly on the right of your camera, and as they make their way down the start-finish straight, Harry Phillips just behind Carpina as they roll the way on through, and then Vulcan Pakiridan, well, he's made his way out to turn number 9, and in fact, as they head up towards 10, I think Troket, as he's cleared his pit stop almost now. In fact, it's quite a long stop there from Troket, I should say. In fact, he hasn't actually come down off the jacks, and he's finally come down off the jacks, but it is a slightly longer stop. And, well, here comes Pakiridan, and, well, will he make his way back up into P3? No, because Troket comes on through to retake P3, but it is the case that he makes his way up to speed. Pakiridan now, who is continuing to fly, he's just set a personal best of the race. You can imagine Pakiridan will know that it's only about 10 seconds between himself and Troket, and as he charges up the hill, he's still got a potential podium on the cards today. As they make the way on around, we've still got 6 minutes of this pit window to go. It is the case that we look from our P4 driver all the way down to our P16 driver, Nick Timmermans here, and the DC Sim Racing driver chasing after a wayward Hot Gaming driver machine of what is there, Drew Matthews, getting a little bit unsighted at the bus stop chicane, the rear stepping out, and Drew Matthews really hurt by that, as we see Andrew Pike just behind in P17, also wanting to come through versus the HFG machine very shortly, as they make the way on down out to turn number 6 and up towards 7. Here's the case of number 134 driver here, just starting, I think, to feel a little bit of pressure behind him as the Sim Racing collected driver of Pike looks for the move. We ride on board here with Drew Matthews as he takes us up towards turn number 8. You can see there in the distance, that's Pike, who is right now less than a second behind. He looks a long way away, but I can assure you he will close up on the braking quite considerably as they make the way through the right into left. It is the case, in fact, that's not Pike behind. I'm going to wash my mouth out with soap around that one. It's the case that's one of the other Sim Racing collective drivers behind. We're not 100% sure who it is, in fact, which is trying to disseminate that information. In fact, I think that's Jack Southfield behind, unless I'm mistaken, which is P24, and Andrew Pike is the best part 9 seconds down the road, so a little bit of mistaken identity there, and I do apologise for that, but as they come on through, it is the case that Drew Matthews right now trying to stay in that P16 and keep Pike at bay. Pike is definitely the faster of the two of them, and we'll see that battle come to fruition later on. But meanwhile, looking from Matthews all the way up to P8 and former Jonathan Reed. Jonathan Reed right now closing up behind Samuel Fosh here as they make the way into turn number 10. Now, of course, for Fosh, does he need to fight this hard in order to secure what is still Community Racing's title defence? No, he technically doesn't, but you can imagine he wouldn't want to give an advantage to SOP Motorsport, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, it's the case that Reed not close enough to look for the move here, and also I think conscious of the fact if he makes the move now, then he's going to be vulnerable to a return move from Fosh in the run all the way out to the bus stop chicane, given we've seen how strong the draft is around here. As they make the way through turns 2 through to 4, it is the case that Reed's staying right there behind his rival. But what's interesting, the fact he's not really gaining too much as they make the way onto the straightaway here, and as they head up towards the bus stop chicane, he's closer, but not enough to consider a move. In fact, he's going to go in, and just has to back out there. There's a little bit of sparks flying west there at the bottom of the cars, grazing the ground, but as they come into turn number 5, well, Reed has got a lot of momentum. He tries to go around the outside, but Fosh just simply defends it, and to be fair to Fosh, it's the case now that was a very cold and calculated defense. He knew Reed was going to try and carry a lot of momentum, but he stuck to his guns, which was just hold the inside at turn number 5 and just focus on making sure that Reed can't hold it all the way around the outside and get squeezed to the curb, and that's exactly the way it worked out. And Fosh there definitely, whilst he didn't really make a major defence per se, he made the right amount of defence to keep Reed at bay. But you can imagine Jonathan Reed's only going to be more fired up by that as they make the way down towards turn number 8, as they roll the way into the right hander here of Hill Corner. The thing for Fosh is, as we ride on board looking back from the Triple Eight driver, is the more these two battle, the more it leaves them prone to Renandito closing up behind. I can tell you right now that Randy Renandito from Rapid Drivers Club in P9, he may be 9.5 seconds back currently, but he is lapping about 3 to 4 tenths a lap faster than these two, and when they battle one another, they'll be costing one another a lot more time, and that could really come to work out for Renandito as they head on down towards another lap, charging across the line there. Fosh right now in that P7 position, holding on versus Reed as they head into turn number 1. 32 minutes remain here. The pit window's almost closed. And to be fair, everyone's serviced their stop, but Reed closer again as they head out 1 and up through 2, 3, 4. But as they charge their way up through the sweep, it is the case that Reed's got to time this right. And Foch, to be fair, will have the initiative, I think, to defend it on the inside. He holds the car over to the inside, or does it? Jonathan Reed takes a little peek here. They make the way down, but there's even more traffic in front, and Reed has to back out there with the flag. There's blue flags waving, and that's for one of the HFG machines, the half-fast gaming machines. We've also got Richard Pixley from Wild Things Racing, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is also just in front one of the SOP Motorsport machines, and I think that may be Burnston as they make the way down into turn number 6. But as they do, Foch that time just simply using the traffic to his advantage and making it impossible for Reed to even consider a move. You could see Reed wanted that inside line, and Foch said, well, yeah, you can have it, but what you can also have is a car going slowly in front of you, and you won't be able to make the move without taking everybody out. Foch being very clever with this right now as they make the way out to 7 and down towards 8. But as they charge their way on down the hill this time around, it is the case. This battle starts to cool down very briefly, but meanwhile in P20, here's Lewis Argitsu, who was involved in that 5 drivers coming together only moments ago, and he's at the back of this group now battling for P19 with what is Daryl. In fact, that's not Richard Pixley, my apologies, that's Daryl Young, the Wild Things Racing driver we saw in the mix there. And right now Gitsu's trying to get P19 back at Daryl Young as they make the way into turn number 10. But as they roll the way through the left into right, here it is the case. Now Gitsu definitely trying to stay as close as possible to get the run all the way up the hill towards the bus stop chicane, but not able to achieve what he needs at the moment. But as they come on down, you can see here it is the case just in front how all our drivers really trying to shake themselves up, and Foch, to be fair, very comfortably holding that P7, and Jonathan Reed just not having a response as they make the way on through. But as they head up the hill at this time, it is the case that we do have Tom Griffiths and the Quantum Racing Team machine in P18. He has essentially been pulled back into that battle over P19 between Young and also what is Argitsu. But more importantly, now Young's going to look for the move here versus Griffiths. He's not close enough to go for it into the bus stop chicane, but Daryl Young getting very racy as they roll the way on through into turn number 5. And as they come down through the corner at this point, well, the thing for Griffiths is he'll feel as though if he can keep the momentum, he'll be safe. But for how long before Young really starts to turn up the wick? That's the question. Because at that point, when they went to the bus stop chicane, they're only 2 tenths apart. Of course, they will separate a little bit here through these corners, but Griffiths does not look to be comfortably ahead right now. It looks as though he's in fact being pulled further and further into the clutches of Daryl Young as they come out the corner. And in fact, Daryl Young may just have the move here as they roll the way on out. We ride on board here with Daryl Young. He's got a lot of momentum, but he's not quite close enough to utilise it to make the move, as we do see Griffiths defending here into turn number 8, and as they roll the way through, Daryl Young's going to be made to try and go around the outside. He can't quite find it at the moment, and as they head on up here into turn number 9, we've got the 817 car spun on circuit. Hold up a second, it's the case that Teemu Karppinen, what on earth has happened here? The race leader is into the wall. We take a look back. Well, this was only moments ago, and making its way through turn number 4 here. And well, it's the case. We saw a car coming through there, but I think that's a glitch on the camera. But as he made his way up into the bus stop chicane, surely not. The chicane's not claimed him. Rolled his way up through, and oh goodness me! And it was the case of DC Sim Racing machine parked off on circuit, trying to rejoin, and that is the worst thing that he could have asked for. And I do believe that it is the case as we return to our live pictures that Teemu Karppinen, it has not worked out. In fact, he's lost time, and well, we're trying to understand who that was, but it means now that Harry Phillips is your race leader by an unexpected turn, and Tim Troquette is coming through to take second place here. Karppinen with that damage, I would not be surprised if that's a meatball flag, or what is known as the black and orange flag, to say the car needs to go in the pits within a certain number of laps due to damage to the car or something else. And it is the case that Karppinen right now going very slowly, and this is opening up the podium massively here. Now, of course, it is the case in terms of the overall championship, we are not expecting this to be enough of a swing for any of P2 through to P4 in the championship. So SOP Motorsport, DC Sim Racing, alternatively what is their Watkins Racing to seize the championship win right at the finish, but Karpinen is into the pits to repair work, and his race has gone from good to bad to disastrous in the space of only one chicane. And to be fair, I don't think there was anything he could do. He would argue in the fact that it was a car that was trying to rejoin and rejoined at the worst possible time. And well, Tim Troquet right now, he'll be grateful that he's picked up P2, but he won't be grateful to hear that it was contact with a DC Sim Racing car that was pointing the wrong way. We're trying to understand exactly who that was. I think in fact it was Christoph Samin, as we're to understand it, who was part there on circuit. He is in the pits right now being worked on, so that may just add up, but it is the case here. We've had a change to the top three, and Vulcan Pakiridan right now, the American driver from Rapid Drivers Club, finds himself onto the final step of the podium here if things finish as they are, and it is the case. He will be very, very happy right now because his race is only going from good to great to fantastic, and as he makes his way out of 5, it is the case. Heading into 6, a smile might be creeping onto his face. But as we now enter the final half an hour of racing here with 26.5 minutes to go, we give you a quick recap of the field as it currently stands. Your race leader at this point in time, Harry Phillips from Wildwings Racing, starting P2 in a battle back and forth with Teemu Karpinen since the start of the race. Karpinen in the end getting ahead on strategy, but as we just saw, Karpinen in an instant on the bus stop chicane having to come into the pits, yielding the lead to Harry Phillips. But it looks as though right now with an advantage of 14.5 seconds to Tim Troquet and outpacing the DC Sim Racing driver by a couple of hundredths to a 10th a lap. He is on course to make it another win and to end his season on a high for the team. Tim Troquet, meanwhile, in P2 here, making his way through turn number 10 and into 11 as we speak. It has been the case of the DC Sim Racing driver. He has been the third party in the battle for the lead. It is the case that at the start of the race, it was the Phillips versus Karpinen show, but then Troquet was in the rear of the picture, staying with them, and now into P2, followed by Vulcan Pakiridan, who has come all the way from towards the back end of the top 10 up into P3 through sheer grit and determination. And the Rapid Drivers Club driver right now looking to end his season on a season best performance, not just for himself, but also for the team if he claims this P3. Then we have Liam Page in P4 here, the SOP Motorsport driver, who I think will only be galvanised. Indeed, the whole SOP Motorsport garage will be galvanised by the fact that we have seen what's happened to Karpinen, and he's back out in P10 here, and they are really the only effective contenders to potentially snatch that championship win off Assetto Community Racing. But they would need all of their drivers to be right up there inside the top 5 to score what would effectively need to be a 400-point result, and that is not coming at this point in time. He's the lead SOP Motorsport driver, but Page, to be fair, is delivering lap after lap. They get headwind in P5, the Salt Community Racing driver, now the lead drivers for Salt in this field. And in this case, the German driver here has had a bit of a quiet race, started towards the rear of the top 10, but he's gradually made his way. In fact, he started outside the top 10, I should correct myself there, starting from what was, if my memory serves me correctly, the 7th row of the grid. And after the opening lap instant, which saw over 12 drivers involved in a major bash going through turns 2, 3 and 4, which was triggered by Hirt Fischer and also what was Danny Burnston. It is the case that Ike Edwin gained the most out of everybody and is running in P5 comfortably. He has got his teammate of Sir Vosh, or Samuel Vosh, in P6 here in the Triple 8 car, who has got Jonathan Reed behind. And Reed right now, the one driver who has had it all gone wrong in the pit window, in the fact he was the first driver to pit. He went for the extended undercut, and in doing so, he lost 3 places from P6. He's now trying to recover those places. He's only got one more to go, and it is Vosh in P6 before he potentially has done that recovery job. But Reed, to be fair, delivering lap after lap very well indeed, and right now on the hump for P6. And then we have Rendy Retnandito in P8, another driver who started P21 and he's up to P8 through sheer pace, and also from the instant on the opening lap, which saw him able to navigate his way out through the wreckage and find his way up towards the top 10 early on. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, for the Sim Racing Collective, been involved in a couple of incidents, Kieran Sharp, and we do reckon there might be a little bit of a cloud hanging over him come the end of this race. Not saying those incidents were his fault, but some of them, it was the case. We did yield a position in one of the cases where I think he felt it was his fault in contact with the driver, but it is the case for Sharp. It has not been a positive day for him so far. He's in P9 at the moment, but as he rolls his way up into turn number 9 here, I think right now just getting his head down and trying to bring this race to the finish. And then we have a Teemu Karpinen, our race leader for so long, and qualified on pole by half a second over the rest of the field. And the Finn, after that contact with Christoph Semin, was the bus stop chicane, it is the case now that Karapinen having to do it all again. He's got a long way to go, and I don't think he's got the time to get the race win back, but he'll do everything he can to gain places come the finish. And then outside the top 10, at best the rest, Joe Thisson's in P11, the DC Sim Racing driver involved in the early stage contact on lap number 1. He's recovered to P11 and trying to push on right now to finish the best the rest outside the top 10 ahead of Christopher Kling there, the Swede from Rapid Drivers Club, who is chasing down at Thisson's as it currently stands. But to be fair, he's under pressure himself from Matt Camelio behind, and Camelio with a drive-through penalty has dropped outside of the top 10, now into P13. He's trying to gain those places back right at the finish here. Can he do so for SOP Motorsport? I think he can potentially gain a couple more. He is looking very fast. Tom Davidson in P14. It is the case that early stage pace has not come to fruition, unlike we thought it would. It is the case running P14 right now and really trying to hunt after Camelio. But we look back to Camelio Hicks. He's looking for the move versus what is Kling as they head down the straight up towards the bus stop chicane. He's got to look to the inside here, but he's not got enough coverage up the inside. And in fact, he has to back out for the time being. But Camelio is showing the first signs of a potential move on the cars, and Kling really not carrying any speed through the corner, and almost lose my words of my voice there as Camelio loses the rear of the car and hits the wall coming out at the bus stop chicane into turn number 5. And well, that's a whack that he won't be happy about. It won't be a call to the pits for damage, I don't think, but it will be the case that Camelio's steering rack right now may not be as comfortably pointing in a straight line, given the fact he's really whacked the front right suspension, that BMW M4. But he stays P13, Davidson P14 of course, and then it's an instant for Kling on the exit of turn number 7. Well, both of them have made mistakes in equal measure, but it is the case that Kling having a much bigger mistake compared to Camelio, and well, Camelio gets the place in the end, but I don't think that's how he wanted to get the place, let's put it that way, as he makes his way around. We then look to P15 driver Nick Timmermans here, the 994 driver, who, much like many of his fellow teammates, not having the races wanted since the start, and right now out of position here in DC Sim Racing. It is really looking as though it's going the completely wrong way for them to snatch P2 of the SOP Motorsport in the championship come the finish today. And then we have Drew Matthews in P16, the highest placed half-fast gaming driver right now, the American here, and the HFG team, of course, starting on the back 2 rows in the entirety, all 4 of the drivers on the final 4 spots of the grid, and they have gained places through all the early lap instants. They've been fighting for positions and enjoying their best race of the season. There's no doubts about that. And Drew Matthews doing 1 P16 ahead of Andrew Pike P17 right now, the Sim Racing Collective driver who is chasing after Matthews. And then we do have Daryl Young from Wild Things Racing in P18 here, and he's just not had the race he's wanted whatsoever here today. It is the case that charging on, but he's got a long way to go to try and close up to Pike in P17. 22 seconds is the gap between the 2 of them. We then have what is a little bit further behind him, Tom Griffiths in P19. 3 seconds between the 2 of them. The Quantum Racing team driver trying to get some more points on the board to seal that P6 in the championship from the QRT team. Evan Latafa's P20 here for Wild Things Racing, trying to hunt down Griffiths, and is gradually gaining on him lap by lap. And then we have Lewis Arkitsu in P21 here for Half Fast Gaming. Here's the case, falling back outside the top 20 after that strong start from the team in general. And the American has got his teammate Steve Endres behind him, P22, the Canadian, followed by Richard Pixley here in P23 as he makes his way on down out of turn number 5 and into 6 and 7. As he rolls his way through turn number 7, the Wild Things Racing driver has Ricardo McKing a long way behind him, P24. The Quantum Racing team driver having that dire moment in what was the open that was right in the thick of the carnage, much like Jack Southfield, who in P25 round the Sim Racing Collective driver here, just trying to bring the car to the finish to get some points on the board. And then the last of our runners out on circuit, out of our 30 starters, only 26 remain. We have Danny Byston here, who started P3, was involved in that contact with Yurt Fischer into turn numbers 3 and 4. That's what triggered off the calamity on the opening lap, as some would like to refer to it now. And it is the case that Byston, the last of our runners, and Crystal Semin, Luke Garr, Chris Davis have retired during the pit lane. And we also lost a little bit earlier on at one of our other drivers as well, not quite 100% sure. I think it was in fact here Fisher. It was the case he was listed as a disqualified, but we're not exactly sure what's happened there, as Christopher clings into the pits to repair work to the car from P14, and it is not his day either. But as we now look back up through the field here, having given a recap of the order as it currently stands, we do look to what is here Jonathan Reed, who continues to chase after Samuel Foch as they make their way out of 9 and into 10. And with less than 20 minutes to go now, well, Reed has closed up, and he's been this close for a long time. But I don't think he's quite got enough here to find his way past Foch. And to be fair, Foch digging deep, and I say that, and then Reed gets a really beautiful run out to the final corner. And Foch, in fact, is going to have to respond to this as we ride on board with Jonathan Reed here, going on to lap number 41. Now, the thing for Foch, of course, is if he can potentially drag his feet a little bit through turn number 1, he might be able to keep Reed at bay. But to be fair, Reed a bit far back from corner exit, and this is going to give him the perfect run up towards the bus stop chicane. And as we listen in here, going all the way up to 6th gear now and getting ready to look for the move. You can see Foch covering off the inside already, putting the car in the middle of the road. And Reed's going to be made to look round the outside here, but Foch once again covering it off nicely, but Reed's going to have a lot of momentum. In fact, Foch has got it wrong in the run out, but in return, Reed onto the grass on the outside. There was no contact between the two of them, what we could see, but Reed in the end trying to carry a lot of speed, but Foch did not fall off circuit. In fact, he kept it on circuit, put the car on the final apex curve of the bus stop chicane, and Reed trying to carry all that speed round the outside, understeered off the circuit, but caught the car very well. And to be fair to Jonathan Reed, other drivers would have lost it there, not him. It's against the SOV Motorsport driver. They're doing very well to keep it together and staying right in that fight. But you can see again this very small, cold and calculated defensive work from what is Sir Foch. Really smart driving from him. The fact all he's doing is simply putting the car in the most inconvenient place for the driver who's trying to go for the overtake at the right time. And that's sometimes all you need. You don't need to do anything dramatic. You just need to put the car in the right position. And in doing so, Foch right now is still holding on to P6 and his company doing so as he makes his way up towards turn number 10. But as he rolls his way on through, we look back to Matt Camelio here, who is still up behind Pistons, and Davidson from Rapid Drivers Cup is just behind the SOP Motorsport driver. And as the trio roll their way on down through turn number 5 here, it is the case, it is a 3-horse game for P11 between the DC Sim Racing driver, the SOP Motorsport driver, and also the Rapid Drivers Cup driver. And a little bit further back, they do have Timmons and Matthews. In fact, quite a way back by comparison, 23 seconds back to be fair. And Camelio at this point really trying to find his way on to the move. But as we ride on board here, looking back from Joe Fission's car in P11, you can see how as they roll the way out to the corner, all three drivers taking a little bit of dirt with them. They're trying to exploit the width of the exit at turn number 7, and in doing so a little bit too much, and that will only cost them time in the wider scheme of things. As we hear that Andrew Pike has had a major run. In fact, what has happened to Andrew Pike? Well, he's pointing the wrong way then, he's rejoining. Now, where is that? We believe that is coming out the bus stop chicane. He's fallen victim to it, and I'm hearing in my ear that he's had a spin at the bus stop chicane, but he's been able to bring it back together, and as he rolls his way on through, well, that will be a heartache for the Sim Racing Collective, as it will be more time lost. Be fair, still P16, but as he rolls his way out here, I think Pike will recognise they had a bit more to gain, potentially on Matthews and Timmermans, but that will now fall by the wayside to a degree, as meanwhile, Timu Karpinen has made his way past with Kieran Sharp for P9. How did it happen? Let's take a look back. Where it was in the run up the hill. Now you'll see that is why the HFG machines, the half-fast game machines, peeling out the way. It's a lap down, so you can understand why. But Karpinen here, as we look to the helicam, it is the case making their way through turn number 4 and up towards the bus stop. You can see a Sharp defending initially, but then deciding not to defend. And Karpinen here so close that he had to go for a move. And well, Sharp trying to defend, not working out in the end, and it was the case that Karpinen making his way simply on front. I think what Sharp was trying to do is get Karpinen to go deep into the corner and then get the run into turn number 5 to come back at him, but all it's done is release Karpinen into that P9, and he's starting to break away. But as we return to live pictures, it is the case here that Karpinen's next target will be Randy Renandito, and that gap is 16 seconds. And with all the will in the world, with the fact that Karpinen right now is lapping on average about 1.3 seconds faster than Renandito, 15 minutes remaining, that means we have approximately got on the schedule about 8 more laps to turn, including the final lap. I don't think it's going to be possible. I think he'd be needing to take at least 2 seconds. Well, in fact, he'd be needing to take about 1.8 seconds a lap out of Renandito to go for that P8. But to be fair, anything can happen. As soon as I say that, I think we had a bit of a commentator's curse moment. We have, and Renandito's had a moment with the wall at turn number 2 by the looks of things. What on earth has happened there? Well, as we get the replay of what exactly has happened by the looks of things, so making his way into turn number 1, into the right-hander, or what is known as right 90, it is coming out of the corner. Now, we do have a couple of cars in front, or has Renandito just got this wrong of his own volition? Well, the car's just dipped there into the apex curve too, and it's bounced out, and now that is a very odd one, but Renandito, they just bounced off the corner. Now, I'm wondering whether the front right-hand side of the car, there with a low ride height on the car, has potentially scraped and bounced off the road surface, but it does seem to, and Renandito has not dropped a place, but what that means is now the gap between himself and Karpinen has dropped from 16 seconds to 6.5 seconds, and Renandito will have significant damage on the car as well. I don't think he's been flagged to come into the pits, but he will now be in a car that's wounded as he makes his way all the way up towards turn number 8. And Will Karapinen's now 5 seconds behind. That gap is coming down like wildfire. It's coming down very quickly indeed. But as they make the way on through, we look at Evan Atafas in P19. He found his way a little bit earlier past Lewis Argitsu for P19. He's now chasing after what is ahead of him there of Tom Griffiths for P18 versus the Quantum Racing Team driver. And as the Wild Things Racing Team driver makes his way for the right-hander here, trying to get another few points on the board for the team as he makes his way on to another lap. Will he be able to go for the move? He is looking the faster of the two. Last lap from Tom Griffiths was at 46.977. Evan Natafas at 46.355. I think right now Natafas is definitely on course to be looking for a move within the final 10 minutes of this race as he creeps closer and closer. But as he rolls his way on out, we look a little bit further up the road to Tom Davidson here. Still in that three-way battle for P11 between Fistins, Camilio and himself. It is the case here. You can see just in front is Matt Camilio and then Joe Fistins just up the road. And they've got a gap to what is Kieran Sharp in P10. There's a long gap, so I think they're all going to be squabbling to be the best of the rest outside of the top 10 for the remainder of this race. But as the track temperature continues to come down a little bit, now down to 14 degrees centigrade. We started at 16. It is the case here late in the evening into the night at Watkins Glen International in the state of New York of America. It is the case the driving continues, the racing continues, and whilst there's been a lot of drama in the season finale, let's not forget that opening lap, there were questions whether there'd be a red flag given the number of drivers caught up in that instant. No red flags were called. The racing continued in the end, and we've still had an absolute thriller of a race. It's been a different race compared to what we expected. It should be said, we did not expect it to play out the way it did at the start, but it has led to a lot of drivers being out of position and a lot of recovery drives and battles to hold on to places. And right now Davidson's trying to go around the outside to inside versus Camilio into the bus stop chicane. He can't do it, and he understeers onto the grass there, and Tom Davidson then trying to carry a bit too much speed, but now he'll recognise that Camilio is not going to be easily taken in to the bus stop. But as they make the way on through, we do look from them to Natafas here, who right now continue to chase after what is Griffiths of P18. And as they roll the way into the final corner, this time around Natafas not really gaining at the moment. He seems to have hit a bit of a brick wall in terms of closure. Half a second off at the end of sector 2, and as he crossed the line, still half a second off. And I do wonder whether he's got the car set up to run in clear air, because it does not look as though it's as comfortable. Though I say that, he gets a really good run out of turn number 1, and as they make their way up the hill towards the bus stop chicane now, we ride on board here with Evan Natafas as he looks at a potential move. Ended a lift a little bit there, and that's the dirt, yeah, and that calls out what we were just saying a moment ago. This car that he's driving is made to run in clear X, lifting in the run out of 3 into 4. That's not what you want to do. It loses you so much momentum into the bus stop chicane, and that's what's enabling Griffiths to be able to hold firm there. And the toughest right now struggling in that dirt, yeah, he's got the pace to get the job done, but the problem is now he's in that dirt, yeah, that pace is falling out of the car and he's having to fight with it. But to be fair, in these camber corners, particularly turn number 5 there, really nice run, and the same through 6 here, and the toughest really responding well now. Well, I say that, lose the rear car a little bit, just dipping the car as he came out to turn number 6, and I think he'll recognise here he's pushing into the realm whereby the car does not want to go, and he's got to try and wrangle the beast. As meanwhile, a bit further back here, going from one Wild Things Racing driver to another, here's Richard Pixley, who's trying to find his way past Steve Endrez, and the Canadian driver is going to be looked up on the inside by Pixley as they make the way into turn number 2. Now will the HFG driver find a way back, or will it be the case the Wild Things Racing driver's got it all done? I think he's got it done as they make the way through 4 and up towards the chicane. Still 9 minutes on the clock by the time they clear the chicane, and right now Richard Pixley gaining one more spot. He's up to P22 and Half Fast Gaming's Steve Endrez down to P23, but as they make the way through, we hear that what is Sam Foch still ahead of Jonathan Reed as they make the way into these final minutes. And right now the Salt Community Racing driver trying to hold on to P5, P6 I should say, all the way to the finish. His teammate Headwind up in P5 of course, and right now Reed's going to try once again and go around the outside here into the bus stop chicane. He's tried this before, it didn't work. What will make it different this time? Well, it's the case he's trying to get Foch to outbrake himself and understeer beyond the curbs, but it is the case that Foch just does not fall for that one, and as they make their way down and around, we ride on board here with Jonathan Reed. The closest battle up inside the top 10 And right now, the SOP Motorsport trying to throw everything, including the book and the kitchen sink, in order to try and gain one more place, and the place I think he feels he deserves come the end of this race, given the fact that he's worked so hard to get into P6 at the start of the race, and now he's got one more driver between him and that coveted 6th position. But as he makes his way out of turn number 7 here, you can see just that dirty air creeping onto that front end and caused a bit of understeer on the exit of 7 and cost him the exit as he now makes his way down towards heel corner at turn number 8, but still with time to go. The difference being that Reed definitely looks to come more comfortable of the two in terms of going into these braking zones heavy, really trying to extract that lap time, but Foch seems to have an answer for everything as they make the way through the left-hander of 9 and rolling the way out at this point. It is the case, no change right now as Reed heads into the penultimate 2 corners. 8 minutes still on the clock. There's only another 5 laps to go, including the one they'll finish on, and as they make the way through the right hand here of turn number 11, Bosch definitely not looking overly comfortable in the car now. The car does seem to be hitting its limit, but to be fair for Reed, he's been on these tyres for almost 60 minutes, where he will have been come the end of the race. He was the first driver to pit, and everybody taking that change of tyres in the pit stops today. And as they roll the way on out, well, Reed trying to stay as close as he dares as he makes his way on up, but just no change right now. He's going to be getting closer and closer. He comes through 3 into 4 in the draft here, but the Fiat Foch will once again hold that inside line, no doubt, and Reed will be made to go to the outside. What can Reed do differently here? And that's the problem. We can see what he's trying to do this time is go all the way in, but this is very brave of Reed. In the end, unsighted and hits the apex curve way too early and too high, and it unsettles that car. But credit to Jonathan Reed for trying something different by trying to sneak on the inside, but in the end, he was only going to go one way, and that was to hit that apex curve into the bus stop chicane hard and fast, and it has unsettled the car, and he's got it all to do once again now as he drops a good second or so behind Sir Foch right at the end of this race. But as they make the way on down and around, it is the case we look from here to a bit further down the order to Daryl Young here, caught right up behind Andrew Pike right now in the battle for P15, and the Wild Things Racing driver here trying to squeeze the pressure on it right at the final few corners as they make the way on around turn number 7 here, and as they emerge from the corner, well, Daryl Young was all over the back of Pike on the entry, and he continues to be the same on corner exit, as we're hearing that Kieran Sharp right now has got ahead of Renandito for P9, and we're also hearing that Tuffers has found his way past Tom Griffiths for P18 of camera, both of those moves being made, but we stay here with the battle for P15, and right now Andrew Pike under that huge pressure as we ride on board and look back from the Sim Racing Collective driver, and well, we can see here Young, he is setting up the move, he's trying to get in the head of Andrew Pike here, put all that pressure on as they flow their way through turn number 10 and into 11, but the thing for Daryl Young, he's got to pick the right time to go with this, he's got to get the run out the corners, and as they emerge onto another lap here, going on to lap number 47 for them, it is the case they charge across that timeline. Pike's going to defend to the inside here, they roll the way under braking, and well, Young's going to try and go around, there's a bit of door-to-door contact between the two of them, it's going to be a drag race, Daryl Young peels off circuit, he rejoins, he tucks him behind now, and I think in the end Pike getting an elbow out and say to him, well, you can try to go around the outside, but I'm not going to give it to you, and as they make the way through turns 2 through to 4 at this point, Young definitely looking the faster of the two down the straight, but as they head on through with the draft to Young's advantage here, he's got the inside now, can Pike hold it round the outside to inside here, this is going to be bold stuff, Young on the inside on the brakes, and I think Andrew Pike has lost the position there for the time being as they emerge from the bus stop chicane, and Daryl Young finds his way up into P15 with 5 minutes to go as he rolls his way down through turn number 5, but as they make the way on out of the corner, it is the case a little bit further up the order, we can see that Camelio right now all over the back in the battle for P11 with Joey Vicians and the SOP Motorsport driver. This is critical for SOP Motorsport to beat Joey Vicians right now in the form of Camelio getting ahead of him, because that will give them that extra layer of security that they will finish as runners-up. Remember, the difference between SOP Motorsport and DC Sim Racing in P2 versus P3 in the championship was 9 points going into tonight, and both teams have considerable margins they can improve upon, whereas Camelio looks down the outside here into the bus stop chicane, not able to find it, and just behind them that's Davidson. In fact, Davidson a little bit further back there, it's the fact Davidson has peeled off with the fact we do have a DC Sim Racing driver behind this pair, and we're trying to understand who exactly that is. That's not Timmermans, in fact that may be Tim Troquet, in fact, as they roll the way on down. as they wind their way down the corners. In fact, that is Tim Troquet. We can confirm here. Camelio looking around the outside. He's not going to interfere with Troquet, although he'd love to as the blue flag's away. And in fact, I think he's going to try and get his nose in. In fact, trying a bit daring there to get his nose in at turn number 7. And trying to force Camelio to give up the position on the grounds of blue flags. But Camelio not playing that game and instead staying there. And as they make the way up into turn number 8 at this point, Troquet's going to have to wait for his opportunity to get on through. And Camelio is not going to let another DC Sim Racing driver get between them unless he can stay with his rival all the way through. And I'm not saying that Troquet is going to try and intentionally then slow Camelio up once he gets ahead of him, but you can imagine on Camelio's mind right now will be the fact that he does not want to lose any ground at all to his opponent here with 3 minutes still left on the clock. They haven't got long left. You can see that Troquet now is flashing his lights to say to Camelio, look, respect the blue flags, I'm coming through. But at the same time, of course, Camelio knows this means a lot here, and I think he'll try and hold off respecting those blue flags as long as possible. But I think as they roll the way into turn number 1, this would be an opportunity now to yield, given the fact he's nowhere near as close to the back of Fistins as he was last time around, and really he does not want Troquet behind him for the remainder of the race if he can afford it, for the simple reason it's only going to cause him to have to divert his attention in 2 places at once. He may as well let it go here. Will he, however? That's the big question. He's in the toe of his rival. He's getting closer, and the 3 of them are going to almost go 3 wide. And you can see Troquet there taking another peek. Oh, and there's a bit of contact there between the 2 of them coming for the chicane. And well, in the end, Fission's going a bit slow. He keeps Camelio behind him for the time being, but the driver's in contact there, and Fission's definitely struggling that time around. Now as they make the way out to the corner and down towards turn number 6, they head into the braking zone here, and as they roll the way through, Camelio all over the back of his rival, literally within nose touching distance. They make the way out to 6 and into 7, and at this point, it's the case that Fissions has got to defend every which way as they roll the way through 7. And you can see behind Troquet there getting frustrated and trying to get Camelio to yield to the blue flags, but Camelio's got his teeth in, and you can understand completely from a racer's perspective why that's the case as they make the way down towards turn number 8. And it is the case that Troquet they're taking a little bit of a peek, but Camelio in the end saying, no, I want this place, I'm going for it here. It's the season finale, and you can understand there, if he gets a wag of a finger from the stewards after the race, I think he's going to shrug his shoulders at that and just politely say thank you, I'll take a note of it for next time. But as they make the way into turn number 10 right now and roll the way on through, Fissions at this point really, I think, hoping those blue flags can work to his favour right at the end as they make the way onto what will be, as we understand it, the final lap of the race that our race leader Harry Phillips has just gone on to. But as they roll the way on out here, Camelio finally yields to what is Tim Troquet as they go on to the final lap, and I think it is the case now. He's got to worry about Tom Davidson behind him, who's been waiting to pounce in the wings for a long time for P12, but Camelio goes very wide there. Wait, I think that's going to give him a lot of momentum up the hill, but a lot of marbles on the tyres as well. As he makes his way on up the hill, it's the case that Davidson now looking for that last gasp opportunity here to try and gain P12 come the finish. They roll the way out to turn number 4, and as they do, well, Davidson's going to be pinned to the grass there by Camelio. He's going to be made to go around the outside. Camelio's going to defend this. He's digging deep, and as they roll the way through, Davidson can't find a way round at the moment, but as they head on through and down towards what is turn number 5, it is the case that Davidson stays where he is for the time being, but the ante is definitely building here as they roll the way on out to the corner. As they head into turn number 6, they'll stay as they were for the time being. Meanwhile, as we look from them to our race leader, this is Harry Phillips right now, and it is the case. He was our winner, of course, at Alton Park last time, and as he brings his way around for only 3 more corners, it has been a race. Well, I think he was expecting he maybe ended up P2 given the pace of Team Karapinen since the start, but and then with Karapinen having that accident at the bus stop chicane, there's only 2 corners to go, and as he rolls his way on through, it'll be the best result he could have asked for at the finish. He heads through the final corner, the clock striking 0, and here's your winner, ladies and gentlemen. It's Harry Phillips, the British driver from Wild Wings Racing, who takes the win in the season finale at Watkins Glens by a margin in the end of at least 10 seconds over Tim Troquet, as meanwhile our second place driver makes his way through the final couple of corners here, and what a race it's been for the DC Sim Racing driver in the end to finish P2 on the podium in that second place. He crosses the line there, I think absolutely pleased as punch, and then it will be Vulcan Pakiridan here, the driver who has come from a long way down the order to P3 in the end, the American from Rapid Drivers Cup, a perfect result to end his season, the team season. Liam Page will take P4 for SOP Motorsport, and then it will be Igor Hedwine who takes P5, and I think effectively with this P5 and the P6 of Samafosh behind as he comes to the line. Headwind, that will mean that Salt Community Racing are your champions for this season. Samafosh will be shortly coming on through in P6 as he makes his way for the final couple of corners, and along the way getting past Steve Endres there, who's down in P23. But Fosh comes on through here, and as he rolls his way around, it's not been the perfect day for any team, to be fair. But as the fireworks go up in the background, the fireworks of Assault Community Racing, because Fosh takes P6, Jonathan Reed P7, he couldn't quite get it done, but I think that P7 combined with Page's P4 is enough to secure what will be their P2. We'll then have Timu Karapinen, who would have thought he was on course to win today, but the Finn will finish in P18, but everybody knows that he had the pace today to win by a mile, but it wasn't to be. And then it was Kieran Sharp who would make his way on through to take P9 for the Sim Racing Collective. The Briton having a difficult day and having to battle halves that P9, and in the end just beating Randy Renandito to complete the top 10. But in the end, your overall podium, Harry Phillips first, Tim Troket second, Vulcan Pakiridan P3, and then best the rest outside the top 10, Joe Vissins holding off Matt Camelio for P11 in the end, and Tom Davidson not able to find his way on through for P12. He's finishing P13, Nick Timmons P14, and Daryl Young completes our top 15 there, in ahead of Andrew Pye, Evan Natafas, and then it was Drew Matthews, and then we can see Tom Griffiths, Lewis Argitsu completing the top 20, Christopher Kling P21, Richard Pixley P22, Steve Endres P23, Ricardo McKing P24, and Jack Southfield completing the order P25. But what a race in the end, and well, very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, we will be making our way for post-round interviews for our top 3 finishers. Don't go anywhere, we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes for the interviews, and you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is now time for our post-race interviews with our podium finishers. And we've got three different teams on the podium today. Wild Things Racing's Harry Phillips, DC Sim Racing's Tim Troker, and also Rapid Drivers Club's Vulcan Pakiridan. And it is the case that all three drivers putting in stellar performances in their own regard. And we start off with a back-to-back race winner, Harry Phillips. As he joins me in the interview room, Harry, it was tough out there today. It looked tough in qualifying, but in the end, it seems as though keeping the pace, keeping your head down, and a little bit of lady luck shine on through as well versus your opponent Karpinen was what led to the victory. How do you feel taking the win in the season finale?
Yeah, it feels really good, Paul. Like you said, I got extremely lucky. That there was the incident up ahead that obviously meant I took the lead. That's just a bit of a shame, really, because yeah, Timmy was absolutely rapid today. There was no holding him back. Um, I didn't really have too much practice, but still, even after an hour and a half, I was still pretty. I couldn't get the pace going in that car today. I couldn't get it feeling right. Massive understeer on entry and mid corner, and then oversteer on exit. Which, to be fair, you could probably say that that's the BMW in a nutshell, actually. But still, it was especially bad today at Watkins Glen. But yeah, it feels good to tie the season up with one last win. Even if a little bit of a Moses effort had to be done there to take the win. Um, but yeah, it feels good, and a massive congratulations to the Salt community. They've just been stellar this season, as they were last year. Looks like there's no taking the crown off of them.
Oh, indeed. They have defended their crown, and we'll talk more about that later. But focusing on yourself and the team, of course, you're saying about with regards to Timu Karpinen's pace, how strong it was. I have to ask, in the qualifying session, given your struggles with the car, as you were saying there, particularly that understeering, it being a bit of a boat to turn, as is the nature of the BMW M4. When you went into qualifying, were you targeting being on the front row, or is it the case that you ended up on the front row unexpectedly?
Yeah, I was targeting maybe a top five. I didn't know who was driving today. But looking at the pace of everyone there, when I put my first two laps in and I was about P10, P11 or something like that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I really do need some practice to get my pace up. I wasn't doing too well, so then I switched gears a little bit, got a little bit more focused, and managed to put it P2, 5/10 down on Timu. But yeah, that's the best I had today. But it went to plan.
And speaking of plans going into the race, we saw a very early charge from yourself to try and take the lead off of Karpinen into turn one, going around the outside, and a back and forth between the two of you for the opening four laps. Just take us through, was the aim of your strategy to try and get ahead and keep him as slow as possible for the first half of the race, or was there a different strategy at play?
Yeah, I mean, oh, that was just so much fun. So massive shout out for the battles there. That was a lot of fun. Even the moment through bus stop where we both had a bit of a moment through there, that was good fun as well. But yeah, I was trying to get ahead. As I got a really good launch. I don't know if that was me getting a really good launch or Timo getting a really bad one, but either way, try and get ahead and try and keep the first place because I knew I was going to be too slow to kind of make moves on him. Um, and I knew that Watkins is quite difficult to actually overtake around, from experience with the 2.4 hour on Wednesday. Stuck behind a car for about 20 laps or so. Um, but yeah, that was the plan, but yeah, I just couldn't hold it, and I was making too many mistakes. I think with about 35 minutes left of the race as well, I started getting massive fatigue and feeling quite ill actually. So I slowed down to try and get myself back in shape. And then that was shortly after that was when Timu had the crash. Um, so yeah, that really was especially lucky when that happened. But yeah, from then on, just smooth sailing.
Oh, indeed. And I'm very sorry to hear you weren't feeling too well during the race, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit better now. You can jump out of the virtual cockpit. But I do have to ask, with of course Timo being involved in that instant, you having the opportunity to essentially sail off into the distance. When you reflect back on this and put some distance between yourself and what has been a fantastic season for not just yourself but also Wild Things Racing, what will be the races or the moments that you'll reflect upon the most fondly?
Oh, it can't be anything other than Alton Park. I mean, I know the Salt community guys couldn't make it, and that was so unfortunate because I was really hoping that we could have some good battles there. But the podium lockout from Wild Things, when we got Chris and Patrick in, um, and Daz is a solid effort despite the turbulences of the race for him. Yeah, that race was just it went really well for us as a team there. We've had our ups and downs this whole series as a team. We've not had the same drivers in like some of the other teams. We've had the same driver in several times, so we've been a bit, hot seating it, I guess you could say, or instead of hot desking. Um, but we've put in a solid effort. I'm not sure where we are in the standings. We were aiming to try and get P3, but yeah, the competition here, everyone. Big shout out to everyone who's competed here in this series. It put some solid effort in and some great battles. But yeah, it's been good fun.
Oh, indeed. And I've just double checked the results because they've just come in the provisional results before stewarding inquiries. And as it currently stands, I'm sorry to break this to you, but it is the case. DC Sim Racing have taken that P3 from yourselves by 30 points come the finish. I can imagine Tim right now in the other side of the interview room might be jumping up and down in joy behind his muted microphone. But still, a great performance for yourself and the team all the way through. And I do have to ask, looking ahead, of course, to future seasons of racing with the Rapid Drivers Club Leagues, if we were to have a season 3, would Wild Things Racing be coming back and charging for that championship?
You know it. If it comes back, we'll be back as well. I can't obviously I can't speak for the whole team, but for me, definitely, this series was this series is quite close to me because it was the first series where I competed on the sort of level that like Sofosh, you've got Hiet Fisher, Timu, like they're all extremely fast drivers, and it was the first time that I actually started to get onto their pace essentially because that was I think the first series was about 6 months into my start of sim racing last year. So I couldn't say no to a season 3. I'm really hoping it comes back either next year or sooner or later. As long as it comes back, I'll be very happy. But yes, you can count me in on that.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear, and we love to hear that not that standardization, but that support for the series and what it's looking to achieve. And indeed, the fact that you've got so much out of it over the course of 2 seasons so far, we definitely look forward to seeing you and the Wild Things Racing team come back for season 3. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on air?
Yeah, I'm just gonna shout out RDC. I mean, I've been racing with them for a long time now, and every event that I race with them in is just so much fun. Whether that's the GT4s in the Maserati, or this series with all the communities coming together to race together, or even some absolutely bonkers leagues like the 2.4 hour solo drives and the reverse grid Janettas. Oh man, every event I've raced with RDC has been just top notch, and everyone who races at RDC is just they're just top quality people. It's always good fun to race with them. So yeah, massive shout out to RDC and especially Alex Nunes. Been doing a solid job handling everything in the background and all the servers and everything. And of course yourself, Paul, for broadcasting. I've watched every single broadcast back, and every single time, so much energy. It's so much fun to watch.
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure, Harry, and I'm sure Alex will be very grateful for the shout out there because I appreciate he does put a huge amount of effort in the background along with his colleagues at Rapid Drivers Club. But with that, congratulations on your win today. Whilst it didn't quite work out to seal P3 in the Championship for Wild Things Racing, still stellar performances from yourself and the team, and we look forward to seeing you take part in future Rapid Drivers Club series, and hopefully, if there is a season 3, Wild Things Racing will be fully back in action.
Thanks so much, Paul.
All the best. So coming from our race winner then, now to our second place finisher of Tim Troquette from DC Sim Racing. A race which saw him act as a bit of a third party to the top two up front, but still in the end picking up a second place. Tim, we've seen you perform very well over the course of the season. There's no doubt about that. But I think today was really the icing on the cake. A great drive from yourself, great qualifying, second place in the end. How does it feel to be on the podium at Watkins Glen?
Yeah, it was super great. I mean, if I look at the first lap, I was pretty lucky that I could avoid all the carnage, all the accidents in front of me. So I was a bit of luck. There was a bit of luck for me, but overall, I think I had a good pace. In the beginning, it was, I would say, um, well, I could keep up with the guys in front because they were battling, but all with all, those guys were like 2 to 4 tenths a lap quicker every single lap. So it was for me the goal to create a gap behind me, and well, that worked out pretty well. So I'm really glad I finished on the podium, of course. And to be fair, very sorry for Timu that he could not take the win on this one because I think he hit a back marker, and if I'm not mistaken, he was well, a collision with one of my teammates, but not entirely sure. So it's yeah, it's a pretty tough one. So, but all with all, very happy with the result.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're happy. Of course, it was unfortunate with your teammate being involved in that collision with Karapinen, but I'm sure that'll be investigated post race by the stewarding team. But just focusing a
No.
little bit on yourself, qualifying went quite well. Was it the case that you qualified where you thought you were going to be, or was there a bit more out there?
Yeah, I was aiming for like a 43.8 roughly, and I think I'm well, I nailed that one. So it was point 0.9 or point 0.8, I believe, and there was another I think 3 tenths in it. But yeah, I mean, with this field of drivers, it's really difficult to get in the front. Most of them, well, I would say are a bit quicker than I am, but I picked up the pace pretty well during the season. I think lots of ups and downs, a lot in qualifying, by the way. So yeah, I was really happy, really glad with the fifth position. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. And starting from fifth, we have to come to the start of the race, of course, because we saw what was Hirt Fischer and also Danny Beisden in that contact in the run to turn number 3. Just your thoughts from your perspective, because you were in the popcorn seat view. I can imagine you probably didn't have popcorn in your driver's seat. You were probably gripping the steering wheel in panic.
It was kind of code brown indeed, but yeah, when we drove up the hill, I saw them hitting, well, coming close to each other. I thought, well, let's go to the outside because there was like I'm not sure who was in front of me. I think it was I'm not sure. Anyhow, I wanted to move to the outside to come on the inside for the next corner, and then they hit over there, and I had to lift a tiny bit, and then I was able to run through. Unfortunately, I think 75% of the grid wasn't able to avoid anything. So also my teammates were collected completely in it while people driving well in the back of them. But yeah, that's how what happens with these kind of crashes. It's just a big pile up. If and sometimes it happens. Luckily, I haven't seen this in RDC so far, so this was the very first time, and I've not seen this for quite a while, to be fair. But yeah, every now and then you see some kind of big crash in a season. So yeah, I was in the top seat, but could easily, well, let's say easily avoid the action or the carnage.
Oh, indeed. And after all the carnage had cleared and whatnot, of course, the race continued, and we saw you chasing after Phillips and also Karapinen for a time. Because of the fact you've been promoted to P3 early on, did you change your strategy at all, or did you stay to the strategy you had planned?
No, I could follow in the beginning, and I was like, okay, if I can get a position extra, it's nice. But I was pretty convinced that once well, whether I would overtake one of these guys, they would overtake me later on and put pressure on me. So for me, there was no need to get involved in that fight. Well, like I said, they are 2 to 4 tenths quicker per lap, and for me, it was really important to create a gap behind. I think at that time it was Page who was behind me, and Pakiridan was closing in on Page. And when I saw the gap after the pit stop, because I pitted pretty late, I think it was like 10, 11, 12 seconds. I thought let's cool down a bit and defend the position because, well, for me there was nothing to get in the front. And then yeah, I saw Timo being hit, collected, whatever. And yeah, that's very unfortunate. But for me, it was like okay, yay, a yay moment, an extra position that I didn't count in. So yeah, I feel bad for him, but yeah. Anyhow,
That's fair play, and I do like how you stuck to your guns with regards to strategy and focused on consolidating the position. And when we
Mhm.
reflect on your season, it's the case that was your season best finish, your second best finish
Yep.
being a sixth place in round number 2 at Donington Park. Just tell us from your perspective, when you look back at this championship season, will today be your biggest highlight, or will there be other days which were your biggest highlights?
This was definitely one of the highlights, but in all honesty, I also liked the Donington race. It was a really bad qualifying. I think it was 22nd or 23rd on the grid, and coming up all the way in P6 was a great result, especially if you know how difficult it is to overtake on such a track. But yeah, this is well by far the highlight to end up in the podium and to be in the commentary booth with you, of course.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. And just speaking about the wider highlights of the team, we have had it confirmed provisionally that DC Sim Racing in the end have finished
Mm.
third place behind SOP Motorsport, just pipping Wild Things Racing. Your thoughts on what has been a challenging championship, but I think a well-deserved P3 for the team?
Yeah, I think so too. Overall, we well competed pretty well in the field. Quite often we had like a few top 10 qualies and always two or maybe three drives in the top 10 at the end. So it was a really well good season for us. We didn't count on this end result because the field is really strong with a lot of people who well normally are faster than we are. But I think overall with the strategy and the time we put into creating setups and working together on something good. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. So overall, really happy, and I'm really looking forward to another season because these kind of championships you don't see very often, like a team championships, but solo races. And yeah, it brings some extra to the strategy in the race in general. So it's a really cool format, which I really would like to see a bit more in sim racing. To be fair.
Oh, we do appreciate that here at Rapid Drivers Club, and that feedback goes a long way. And I'm really
Mm.
glad to hear that yourself and the team have enjoyed it, and that P3 finish in the end really highlighting what yourself and the team have brought to the championship. But just before we do let you go, Tim, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, first of all, thank you to RDC for organizing this. Thanks to Alex. Of course, thanks to you, Paul, for the energetic commentary you put into all these races and events that are hosted by RDC. It's really cool to watch them back. And so does the family, all the other drives who are not racing every week. So thanks for that. Also my teammates for competing the entire season and. Yeah, for making me part of the DCSimRacing.nl sim racing community. Because I think I'm there for only 6-7 months. And yeah, this was the second or the third event we did together. So thanks to them all. And yeah, thanks for all the good competitors that we had in this championship. And I really hope that everybody who gets invited back to the season 3 championship will keep on continue doing this amazing event because it is definitely a cool event that needs to be continued. What's the future?
Oh, indeed. And well, we're very grateful for the thank you from yourself, Tim. I'm sure all the team out there and all the family will be grateful as well. But with that, thank you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on the second place to finish your championship campaign. And we look forward to seeing you out on track in a future season of the Community Super League.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good one.
You too. So that then brings us from our second place finisher to our third place finisher of Vulcan Pakiridan from Rapid Drivers Club. Vulcan, I have to ask straight away. You started from towards the back of the top 10. You survived the carnage on lap number 1, and you charged with strategy and sheer pace into what was P4 promoted to P3 after Teemu Karppinen's incident. How do you feel about being on the podium in the final race of the season? And not just that, but also securing your team's best result of the season?
It's quite surreal, honestly, Paul. I'm not gonna lie. That lap 1 was very intense. I was very lucky to get through that relatively unscathed. Unfortunately, obviously, a lot of people, got collected in that process. which obviously stirred up the grid order quite significantly. I mean, I can't thank my teammates enough who honestly did a lot more work and preparation for this than I did. I unfortunately had zero prep for this. So I wasn't too happy, I guess, with my qualifying, but I guess I was able to pull it together, for the race, which paid off. And of course, big bummer to Timu for, what happened to him later in the race, to even put me on the podium in the first place. He was insanely quick today. So,
but just dissecting your day then, so talking about qualifying, you're saying about not having as much time to say prep compared to your teammates, and qualifying perhaps not being indicative of what you could deliver. What seemed to be the gap, if you will? Because in the race, we saw after about 10 laps, you were absolutely flying, but qualifying didn't quite hook together.
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest and say that the M4 is not my car of choice. Most people who have interacted with me long enough know that I do not get along well with the car, and it's just one of those things where the driving style of it is so different from anything else that I normally drive, and I have to sort of work my way into driving it essentially, and remind myself of how it likes to behave and how that's so different from the cars that I normally drive and how they behave. So.
Oh, indeed. And whilst the car's not to your liking necessarily, you made it work to your liking over the race distance. But as we dissect the race, obviously lap one, just take us through it from your perspective, what happened there, because it all happened so fast. I can imagine half your life flashed before your eyes.
Oh, it was Code Brown does not do it enough justice, I think, as a description of what that was. I mean, I was very fortunate to be on the team radio with one of my teammates who was a little bit further up, Mr. Tom Davidson, who informed me of the incident happening, and I was able to slow down, not aggressively enough, but enough to let the others behind me know that things were happening. Whereas, unfortunately, I think those that were in front of me did not appear as if they were as prepared for it. And so, yeah, a lot of stuff happened in front. I just held my line. I had a little bit of a contact with someone on my left side who was, I think, trying to just sort of recover from the incident. But, yeah, I mean, I got out of that, like I said, way, way better off than a lot of people did. And so I think that just helped me. I think it also helped in my, overtaking of a few cars afterwards. A lot of the SOP guys, I think, had a lot of damage from that contact. And so it was only a matter of time before, I guess, as my pace was coming in, their pace was obviously struggling from the damage, I think. So it was only a matter of time.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of a matter of time, as we did see the race wear on, we saw your strategy come into fruition, and you made up a lot of time by going a bit longer than everybody else. Just take us through what your strategy plan was today, and also, did you change it based on what happened at the start, I have to ask?
No. I made the decision to take a little bit more fuel for the first stint, just sort of banking on just being able to sort of drive my drive, not obviously expecting it to be as far up the order as it was, but, just really just the strategy was just bringing the car home from the get-go. Like I said, without the preparation, I didn't really know what to expect of myself in this race. So it ended up working out overall, which was great. And yeah, somehow I did overtake, I think, one of the DC drivers, Paige, with the pit strategy, and yeah, I just kept going from there. So.
Indeed, I mean, making that strategy work, jumping ahead of Liam Page, and indeed, it seems that SAP Motorsport struggled a little bit with the strategy, losing places rather than gaining, and of course, you gaining in return. I had to ask, when you came out the pits and saw you'd gained so many places through the way strategy had played out, there must have been an element of sort of surprise, or was it sort of, no, this has worked out spot on?
I would say the expectation was kind of unchanged. I mean, I did not expect to overtake and be ahead as far as I was, I guess, after the pit. But I would say that relatively speaking, it worked out the way that I had hoped it would. So, and yeah, it just kind of came to finishing it off at that point afterwards. As Harry was saying, near the end of the race, fatigue was really starting to set in for me. Driving both this and a few events prior to this, my wrists are quite dead right now. So.
Oh, indeed. And that rate of attrition, really something that can hurt you as the race goes on. There's no doubt about that. But you managed to keep it together and bring it on home. And of course, being promoted to P3 in the end with Karapinen's incident. An unfortunate one, but that's the way it does go. We talked about that a little bit earlier. But what I'd like to talk about, just to really wrap up, of course, we haven't seen you take to the circuit too much in this series with the team. We saw you, of course, at Donington and then returning today. Just your thoughts on your brief campaign and also the Rapid Drivers Club team's campaign as a whole, finishing P5 in the end.
Yeah, as you said, I wasn't unfortunately as involved this season. I just with a lot of life circumstances as well as like I said, the team is well aware of my distaste for this vehicle, basically. But I can't thank them enough for doing everything that they have done throughout the season, regardless of my attendance or not. Everyone's really been pulling their weight like super hard, and I'm just one cog in the wheel of everything. So I can't thank them enough for what they've done.
Oh, indeed. And I think they'll be very grateful for those kind words from yourself. And just extending it to, a wider thought, which is with regards to upcoming seasons. If we are to have a season 3 of the Community Super League, could we potentially see you taking to the circuit more frequently, particularly if it's a car that's more preferable to your taste?
Yeah, if it's, I would totally be, grateful and willing to do another season of this, for sure. Doing events with RDC has been something I've been, participating in for quite some time, and I'm always happy to get involved with anything that they do when I can. Obviously, things lately have been a bit difficult with conflicting schedules for me during the week, so I can't participate in a lot of the stuff that they have during the week, like I said, for example. But yeah, if it is a car that is not the M4, I am definitely willing to give it a shot, so.
Oh, indeed. Well, we do look forward to seeing you take to the circuit in future Rapid Drivers Club Series, Vulcan. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a word of shout out or thank you to live on the broadcast today?
I mean, it goes without saying, both Harry and Tim have said it, but I can't thank Alex and everyone in RDC, both those on the admin side as well as just in the community as general, for having this, available. Alex puts so much work into all of this, both for RDC's own community events, but also, events that RDC works in conjunction with other communities with. He puts in so much effort, and people, I hope, understand that for sure. So love you, Alex. Also, again, to go further with the community aspect, like I was saying earlier, like RDC was the first community to actually like reach out to me when I was like starting sim racing almost 2 years ago now. And, we did a 24-hour endurance race together with me and basically the rest of the RDC admins, Cornelius, Kyle, Jens, and Josh Webster, who is doing real life stuff right now. But yeah, I've never felt more welcomed in this community, both on the admins as well as the people who race in it. So yeah, so shout outs to everyone, honestly.
Well, that's absolutely lovely to hear, Vulcan. I'm sure your colleagues at Rapid Drivers Club will really appreciate those kind words. But with that, thank you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on the 3rd place today. And we do look forward to seeing you out on circuit in future series and seasons.
Thank you so much, dude. And thank you again for all of your commentating and your amazing work with all of this in the streaming side of it too. But thank you.
It's my pleasure, but I wish you a lovely evening.
You too, bud. Take care. Bye.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our post-race interviews from our three drivers there. Our race winner, Harry Phillips from Wild Things Racing, our second place finisher from DC Sim Racing of Tim Troquet, and then we just heard from the American driver there of Vulcan Pakiridan from Rapid Drivers Club. And indeed, three very different perspectives on the race today. Harry Phillips, in the end, knowing that he had the pace for P2, but not quite the pace to beat Teemu Karppinen, who in the end, unfortunately, involved in that instant to lose out on the win. Tim Troquet, battling to be right up there, delivering the pace, and in the end, a third place was going to be secure in his grasp, but took the P2, and then Pakiridan, of course, fighted his way up through the order after a difficult qualifying session where he didn't quite have the feel for the car, but then it came through, and the strategy paid off, plus also the fortune of the open lap instant, which he was able to avoid the majority of. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we've got time for, and thank you very much for watching. And just before we talk about the Rapid Drivers Club community, we're just to confirm that it is the case, it has come through. It's the Salt Racing community who have taken the championship win once again, and that makes them back-to-back winners in the Community Super League. Season 1, they were the winners, and they're defending champions and have defended successfully for Season 2. And, well, if we should have a Season 3, will they come back to defend once again? We'll have to wait and see. But congratulations to them. The team putting in a stellar job. And indeed, to name some, if I can't remember all the names of the team, congratulations to Samir Foch, or Sir Foch as he's known, Teemu Karppinen, also to Geert Fischer, and the rest of their colleagues. They're fantastic driving through and through. But that is the story complete. And if you do want to know more about the Rapid Drivers Club community, including leagues that are upcoming, or to just a little bit more about what we're about and everything else in between, then why not check out our official Twitter? That is twitter.com/Rapid Drivers Club. Or if you want to go to our link tree where we've got all of our full information, you can go to linktr.ee/Rapid Drivers Club. And as we look ahead to next time, well, this season over, what lies ahead, it is the case you need to stay tuned for more series hosted by Rapid Drivers Club in 2022. And if you're looking for one that's upcoming, what if we were to tell you we have got the series known as the Mini Enduro Mayhem Series, as hosted in collaboration by VSRC, the Vulcan Sim Racing Community Series, that is powered by Rapid Drivers Club. And it is the case, this is an endurance series which consists of mini endurance races, a combination of 3 hour and 4.5 hour races. So you can imagine the race lengths are of a duration of 180 minutes or 270 minutes, 6 rounds coming up, and it all kicks up on the 15th of October, running on a weekly basis. And if you want to know more, then head to thesimgrid.com/hosts/Rapid Drivers Club in order to find out more. But it is the case, we've got plenty of more seasons coming up over the course of the remainder of 2022, and it will be our pleasure to bring them to you time and time again. But it is the case, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last time I say this. It is going to be goodbye from us at Rapid Drivers Club for the Community Super League Season 2. It has been our pleasure to host it. It's been my pleasure to be your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.